Welcome. I'm Magnus, and I bring you horror stories to help you relax, or maybe to keep you up at night. Tell us where you're from. Are there spooky forests nearby? If you're a fan of scary stories, subscribe and drop a like. Get cozy, and let's begin. My name is Everett Blackwood, 43 years old, and I never thought I'd end up alone in the mountains of Tucker County, West Virginia. After 20 years working tech in Pittsburgh, burnout hit me like a freight train. My wife Meredith had already left 6 months prior, claiming I'd become emotionally unavailable. Maybe she was right. Our daughter Lily was away at college now, so nothing held me to the city anymore. When I inherited my grandfather's hunting cabin near Canaan Valley, it felt like the universe offering me an escape route. The cabin sat nestled between ancient oak trees, their twisted branches forming a canopy that blocked most sunlight. It wasn't much, just one main room with a small kitchen area, a bathroom addition my grandfather had built in the 90s, and a loft bedroom. No internet, spotty cell service at best, and electricity from solar panels that my grandfather had installed before his passing. The closest neighbor was 3 miles down an unpaved road, an elderly man named Silas who'd lived there since before I was born. I arrived in early autumn, when the mountains were ablaze with color. The isolation felt therapeutic at first. I'd spend mornings chopping wood, afternoons fixing up the cabin, and evenings reading by lamplight. The silence was disturbing at times. No traffic noise, no sirens, just the whisper of wind through leaves and occasional animal calls. But I welcomed it. The quiet let me think, let me breathe again after years of digital notifications and deadlines. Silas visited a week after I'd settled in, bringing moonshine and warnings. "You ought to know about these woods before winter sets in," he said, his weathered face serious in the firelight. "These mountains got history, dark history." I laughed it off, attributing his ominous tone to the local penchant for folklore. He told me about the Wendigo Caves just 2 miles north of my property, named after old indigenous legends of cannibalistic spirits that possessed humans during harsh winters. "Every few decades, someone goes missing round here," Silas continued, his eyes reflecting the flickering flames. "Last one was in '89. Young couple from Maryland, camping where they shouldn't. Rangers found their tent slashed open, blood everywhere, but no bodies." I nodded politely, familiar with how these backwoods ghost stories worked. Every rural area had them. Cautionary tales to keep outsiders away and children in line. Before leaving, Silas handed me an old iron horseshoe. "Hang this above your door," he instructed. I thanked him, planning to toss it in a drawer and forget about it. But something in his expression, genuine concern, maybe even fear, made me promise I would. After he left, I placed it above the front door, telling myself it was just to honor local tradition. Nothing more. The first month passed uneventfully. I fell into a routine, finding satisfaction in self-sufficiency. I repaired the cabin's leaky roof, built a smokehouse for preserving game, and started a small greenhouse using old windows. At night, I'd sit on the porch with a whiskey, watching stars appear in a sky unpolluted by city lights. I started sleeping better than I had in years. The crushing anxiety that had defined my corporate existence began to lift. Then came the first heavy snowfall in mid-November. I awoke to a world transformed, everything blanketed in pristine white. It was beautiful, ethereal even, but it also meant I was truly cut off now. My truck wouldn't make it down the mountain until spring thaw. I'd planned for this, stocked up on essentials, but the finality of my isolation hit me that morning. Standing on the porch, looking at unbroken snow stretching between dark trees, I felt a primal shiver that had nothing to do with the cold. That night, I heard the first scream. It came from the north, from the direction of those caves Silas had mentioned. A high, agonized wail that didn't sound entirely human. I told myself it was just a mountain lion. They could sound eerily like a woman screaming. But mountain lions didn't normally hunt in winter, and something about this sound cut straight through me, awakening instincts I didn't know I possessed. I double-checked the locks on my doors and windows before returning to bed, the horseshoe above my door suddenly seeming less foolish. The screams continued for 3 consecutive nights, always around 3 a.m., always from the same direction. By the 4th night, I'd convinced myself I needed to investigate. Sitting awake with my grandfather's old hunting rifle across my lap, I debated my options. If someone was hurt out there, they'd die in these temperatures. But venturing out in the dark, in unfamiliar terrain, was practically suicide. I decided to wait until dawn. Morning brought 6 more inches of snow and no tracks around my cabin except for a few deer trails. I packed a day bag with emergency supplies, strapped a hunting knife to my belt, and headed north toward the caves. The snow made walking difficult, each step sinking to mid-calf. The forest was dead quiet. No birds, no squirrels chattering in the trees. Just my labored breathing and the crunch of snow beneath my boots. The silence felt oppressive, unnatural. The caves weren't difficult to find. A dark mouth in a limestone cliff face, partially obscured by hanging icicles. No footprints led in or out. I stood at the entrance, calling out, my voice echoing back mockingly. The sensible part of my brain screamed at me not to enter, but I'd come this far. I switched on my flashlight and ducked inside, immediately enveloped by damp, musty darkness. The temperature dropped noticeably, my breath forming clouds before my face. The main passage descended gradually, widening into a chamber about 30 feet in. What I found there stopped me cold. Scratched into the walls were hundreds of symbols, spirals, stick figures, primitive drawings of what looked like elongated humans hunting smaller ones. Some were clearly ancient, others seemed newer. Below them, scattered across the cave floor, were small piles of bones. Most appeared to be animal remains: deer, rabbit, fox, but some larger bones made my stomach clench. I didn't need my limited anthropology knowledge to recognize a human femur. I backed away, heart hammering against my ribs, when my flashlight beam caught something moving deeper in the cave. Just a shadow, a quick darting motion at the edge of visibility. "Hello," I called, my voice embarrassingly unsteady. No response, but I could have sworn I heard breathing, raspy, wet breathing. I turned and scrambled toward daylight, dignity forgotten. Outside, I gulped fresh air, trying to steady my nerves. I told myself the bones were old, probably dating back centuries to indigenous times. The movement was a bat or a rat, nothing more. Back at the cabin, I tried raising someone on my emergency radio, but got only static. I needed to talk to Silas, to ask about the caves, but the fresh snowfall made the journey to his place impossible. That night, I stoked the fire until the cabin was uncomfortably hot and poured 3 fingers of whiskey. I kept seeing those symbols, those bones. Worst of all, I kept hearing that breathing. Sleep came fitfully, punctuated by dreams of being hunted through endless dark tunnels. I awoke suddenly at 3:17 a.m. according to my watch. The fire had died to embers, casting the cabin in shadow. Something had woken me, a noise. I lay perfectly still, listening. There it was again, a scratching sound from the front door. Not the wind-blown branch I desperately wanted it to be, but deliberate, rhythmic scratching. Then it moved to the window, nails or claws dragging across glass. I reached for my rifle, chambered around as quietly as possible. "Who's there?" I called out, trying to sound authoritative rather than terrified. The scratching stopped immediately. Silence stretched for 10 excruciating seconds. Then came a voice. "Hi, Reedy, wrong somehow. Cold," it said, the word mangled as if spoken by someone and used to human speech. "Let me in. So cold." I knew that voice. It was my daughter Lily's voice. But Lily was at Penn State, hundreds of miles away. I gripped the rifle tighter, sweat beading on my forehead despite the chill creeping into the room. "Go away," I managed, my voice barely audible. A low, gurgling laugh answered me, followed by more scratching, more insistent now. I sat frozen, listening to it circle the cabin, trying each window, each vulnerable point. Dawn came after an eternity, and with it, blessed silence. I hadn't moved from my position against the headboard, rifle still aimed at the bedroom door. My muscles screamed in protest as I finally lowered the weapon and rose on shaking legs. At the front door, carved into the wood at about chest height, was a crude version of one of the symbols I'd seen in the cave. 5 parallel vertical lines crossed by 2 horizontal ones. I ran my fingers over the grooves. They were deep, made by something sharp and strong. No animal could have done this. I spent the day fortifying the cabin, boarding up windows, reinforcing the door with extra lumber I'd stored for repairs. Physical activity helped quiet my mind, kept me from dwelling on what I'd heard, what I'd seen. But as dusk approached, dread settled over me like a physical weight. I retrieved my satellite phone from storage, an expensive emergency backup I'd hoped not to use. No signal. I tried the radio again. Still nothing but static, though I could have sworn I heard whispering beneath the white noise. Night fell. I positioned myself in the main room, rifle ready, back to the wall where I could see both the front door and the loft stairs. Hours passed. The only sounds were the occasional pop of embers in the fireplace and my own heartbeat in my ears. At precisely 3 a.m., the temperature in the cabin plummeted. My breath clouded before me, and the fire dimmed as if starved for oxygen. Then came the smell, like rotting meat and wet earth. The scratching returned, more aggressive than before. "Let me in, Daddy," came Lily's voice from outside, distorted and wrong. "I'm hurt. Please let me in." Every paternal instinct screamed at me to open the door, but I knew with bone-deep certainty that whatever was out there wasn't my daughter. "You're not her," I called out, my voice breaking. The thing outside laughed, the sound sliding from Lily's giggle into something inhuman, multi-toned, as if several creatures were laughing in unison. The boards on the nearest window began to splinter. Something was pushing against them, testing their strength. I fired a warning shot through the window, heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. A shriek answered me, not pain, but rage. Then silence fell again, heavy and expectant. I didn't lower my guard. An hour passed. 2. Just as dawn's first gray light appeared, I heard a new sound that turned my blood to ice, Silas's voice, calling my name from the forest edge. I peered through a crack in the boarded window. There he was, limping toward the cabin, one arm hanging at an odd angle. "Everett. Thank God. I've been trapped out here all night. Fell and broke my arm, I think. Let me in, quick." He looked exactly like Silas, same weathered face, same plaid jacket he always wore. But something in his gait was wrong. Too stiff, too deliberate. And his eyes caught the dawn light strangely, reflecting it like an animal's would. "Prove you're Silas," I called through the door. "Tell me something only he would know." A pause. "Too long. Don't be ridiculous, boy. It's freezing out here, and I'm hurt bad. Open up." The desperation in his voice seemed genuine, but I couldn't shake my suspicion. "When did you first visit me here?" I demanded, knowing I'd arrived on a Tuesday, and he'd come the following Monday. "Last Wednesday." Not Silas answered without hesitation. My heart sank. I backed away from the door. Not Silas pounded on the door, his friendly tone vanishing. "Open this goddamn door." The voice shifted, deepening, losing its human qualities altogether. The pounding intensified until the whole cabin seemed to shake. Then, abruptly, it stopped. I heard receding footsteps, then nothing. I didn't trust the silence. I kept my vigil by the door until full daylight streamed through the cracks in the boarded windows. When I finally worked up the courage to peer outside again, fresh snow had covered any tracks. But hanging from a branch directly in my line of sight was Silas's distinctive plaid jacket, soaked with what could only be blood. My stomach lurched. I had to know if the real Silas was okay. I had to get help. Most of all, I had to get off this mountain. I gathered essential supplies, filled my backpack, and strapped on snowshoes I'd found in the storage shed. The nearest town, Davis, was 15 miles away. In good conditions, I could make it in a day. These weren't good conditions. I stepped outside, rifle ready, senses on high alert. The forest seemed abnormally still, as if holding its breath. I avoided looking at the bloody jacket as I passed beneath it. My plan was to follow the road down the mountain. It would be the fastest route, even covered in snow. I'd gone perhaps a quarter mile when I spotted the first tracks crossing my path. They resembled human footprints, but were too large, with elongated toes ending in what appeared to be claw marks. They led in the direction I was heading. Something had left my cabin and was moving toward town. I followed the tracks at a distance, moving as quietly as possible on snowshoes. They led steadily downhill, occasionally veering into the woods before returning to the road. Around midday, I came upon a scene that confirmed my worst fears. Silas's truck lay overturned in a ditch, windows shattered. Blood spattered the snow around it in a wide radius. Of Silas himself, there was no sign, but his shotgun lay nearby, one barrel fired, the other still loaded. I picked up the weapon, now armed with both rifle and shotgun. The tracks continued down the road, but now they were joined by what appeared to be a dragging mark in the snow, as if the creature were pulling something heavy. My mouth went dry. I knew what, who it was dragging. I quickened my pace, no longer concerned with stealth. If Silas was still alive, each minute could matter. The tracks led to an abandoned ranger station I remembered passing on my drive up months ago. Through binoculars, I could see the door hanging open, swinging slightly in the breeze. No movement inside that I could detect. I approached cautiously, both guns ready. The snow around the entrance was trampled and bloody. Deep claw marks scored the wooden door frame. I stepped inside, gagging immediately at the coppery smell of fresh blood. The interior was dark, my flashlight beam revealing overturned furniture and more blood smeared across the floor. In the back office, I found what remained of Silas. I'll spare myself the memory of exactly what I saw. Enough to say that no animal I know could have done that to a human body. Parts were missing. Other parts were arranged in a pattern similar to the symbols in the cave. I vomited until only bile came up, then staggered outside, desperate for clean air. I had just started down the path again when I heard it, a wet, shuffling sound behind me. I turned slowly, raising the shotgun. There, at the edge of the tree line, stood what I can only describe as a nightmare made flesh. It had a vaguely human shape, standing upright on two legs, but was much taller, perhaps 7 feet. Its limbs were too long, joints bending in wrong directions. The skin was a sickly gray-white, stretched tight over visible bone in some places, hanging in loose folds in others. But its face, God help me, its face still held recognizable features of old Silas, twisted in a grotesque parody of his kind smile. I fired both shotgun barrels without conscious thought. The creature jerked backward but didn't fall. A sound escaped it, part shriek, part laugh, and it loped into the forest with unnatural speed. I ran. I abandoned any pretense of tracking or hunting and simply ran, slipping and sliding down the snow-covered road, lungs burning, expecting at any moment to feel claws tearing into my back. I don't know how long I fled before I realized nothing was chasing me. Darkness was falling again, the short winter day nearly gone. I couldn't risk being caught in the open after nightfall. Ahead, I spotted a small shed used for road equipment storage. Not ideal, but better than nothing. I broke the padlock with the butt of the rifle and barricaded myself inside among salt spreaders and snow plows. As I caught my breath, a horrible realization dawned. The creature hadn't pursued me because it didn't need to. It was heading toward Davis, toward people who had no idea what was coming. No cell signal, but I found an old CB radio in the maintenance shed. A miracle it still worked. I managed to raise someone in Davis, the sheriff's night dispatcher. I tried to warn her, tried to explain about the creature, about Silas. She thought it was a prank call. Who wouldn't? I was shouting about monsters and telling her to evacuate the town. She threatened to trace the call and arrest me for causing a panic. I changed tactics, reporting a dangerous, armed fugitive heading toward town, that she took more seriously, promising to send deputies to investigate. I spent another sleepless night jumping at every sound, both shotgun and rifle reloaded and ready. Would the deputies find anything? Would they believe what they saw if they did? As dawn broke, I continued my journey downhill, now moving with renewed urgency. I had to reach Davis, had to make them understand. The snow had finally stopped, and the road was becoming more passable. I began to hope I might actually make it. Around noon, I heard the distant rumble of an engine. I moved to the center of the road, waving my arms frantically. A county snowplow rounded the bend, slowing when the driver spotted me. Relief flooded through me. Human contact, civilization. The driver rolled down his window, eyeing my weapons warily. "You all right, mister? We got reports of someone dangerous up this way." The driver's name was Pete. He was skeptical of my story but concerned enough about my obvious distress to radio in that he'd found me. While we waited for the sheriff, I tried to explain what had happened without sounding completely insane. I mentioned finding Silas's body, but left out the details about what had killed him. Pete nodded sympathetically, clearly thinking I was suffering from exposure or shock. "Been a record cold winter," he said. "Does strange things to a man's mind, being isolated in weather like this." Sheriff Hayward arrived with 2 deputies 30 minutes later. A tall woman with a no-nonsense demeanor. She listened to my account of finding Silas's body at the ranger station with professional detachment. When I mentioned the caves and the creature, however, her expression hardened. "Mr. Blackwood, will certainly investigate Mr. Moore's disappearance. But I should inform you that making false reports about what did you call it, Wendigo creatures, is a waste of police resources. I convinced them to at least check the ranger station. We drove there in tense silence. But when we arrived, the scene had been altered. The blood was gone. Silas's remains were gone. Even the claw marks on the doorframe had been smoothed away. Sheriff Hayward gave me a look that mixed pity with suspicion. Perhaps you should come back to town with us, sir. Get checked out at the hospital. I was placed in the back of a patrol car like a criminal. As we drove toward Davis, I stared out the window, questioning my own sanity. Had I imagined everything? The scratching, the voice mimicking Lily, the creature with Silas's face? But no, the horseshoe above my door, the symbol carved into the wood, those had been real. The caves with their ancient drawings and scattered bones, those had been real too. Davis was a small town of maybe 2,000 people. As we drove through, I noticed something odd. Many houses had similar symbols painted above their doors or on their windowsills, simplified versions of what I'd seen in the caves. When I asked about them, Deputy Collins glanced in the rearview mirror. Just old mountain traditions, he said dismissively. Superstitions from the coal mining days. At the sheriff's station, I was questioned for hours. They took my guns, searched my backpack. I repeated my story, careful to stick to verifiable facts. Silas's visit, his warnings about the caves, my discovery of his overturned truck. Sheriff Hayward seemed particularly interested in whether I'd entered the caves. When I admitted I had, something flickered behind her eyes. Fear? Recognition? She exchanged a glance with her deputies. Mr. Blackwood, she said finally, I'm going to be straight with you. Every few decades, we get incidents up on that mountain. Disappearances. Deaths that can't be easily explained. The official reports blame animal attacks, exposure, accidents. The locals know better. My heart raced. She believed me. But we don't talk about it. Not ever. Especially not to outsiders. This town depends on tourism, hikers, skiers, leaf peepers. If stories got out. What is it? I demanded. What's in those caves? Sheriff Hayward shook her head. Something old. Something that was here long before white settlers arrived. The Shawnee had stories about it. A spirit that could wear human skins, that hungered for flesh. They performed rituals each winter to keep it sleeping in the mountains. When settlers drove them out, those rituals stopped. Then why don't you warn people? I asked, anger rising. Silas is dead because of this thing. Others could die too. The sheriff's expression hardened again. We do warn people, in our way. Locals know which areas to avoid. We discourage development in certain parts of the mountains. And those symbols you noticed, they're not just superstition. They're protection, passed down through generations. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. Listen carefully. You're lucky to be alive. The thing usually takes whole families, whole groups at once. It's never satisfied with just one. The fact that you escaped. She trailed off, her implication clear. I wasn't truly safe. None of us were. What can we do? I asked. Can it be killed? Sheriff Hayward didn't answer directly. Instead, she stood and went to a filing cabinet, removing an old, leather-bound book. This has been passed down through sheriffs of this county since 1879, she explained, opening it carefully. Inside were handwritten accounts, drawings, newspaper clippings, a chronicle of encounters with the creature over generations. She turned to a specific page and pushed it toward me. On it was a detailed drawing of a ritual site, a circle of specific stones, herbs, and symbols. The last sheriff to confront one of these things directly was in 1923, she said quietly. He and 7 men went up with silver bullets and fire. Only 2 came back, badly wounded, but they managed to bind it back to its cave for another generation. I studied the page, memorizing the details. This binding ritual, it works? The sheriff nodded grimly. For a time. But it needs to be renewed, and it needs payment. My blood ran cold. Human sacrifice. It wasn't a question. The sheriff looked away. A life freely given. That's why I can't officially help you, Mr. Blackwood. I can't sanction what needs to be done. She closed the book. But I also can't let that thing come down to my town. You understand what I'm saying? I did. She was giving me the knowledge I needed, but washing her hands of how I used it. They released me at dawn with a warning not to leave town. My weapons were returned, along with supplies I hadn't asked for, silver bullets, herbs I didn't recognize, a knife with strange markings on the blade. No one acknowledged these additions to my belongings. As I stepped outside the station, I noticed Deputy Collins waiting in his personal vehicle. "I'll drive you back up," he said simply. "Sheriff can't officially send anyone, but I've got family in town. My sister has 3 kids." We drove in silence most of the way. Near the turnoff to my cabin, Collins finally spoke. "My grandfather was one of the 2 who survived in 23, he said. "He never talked about what happened up there, not even when he was dying. Just made my dad promise to keep up the symbols, keep performing the minor rituals every winter solstice." He pulled over, engine idling. "I can't go any further. Department regulations." He wouldn't meet my eyes. We both knew he was afraid. I gathered my supplies and stepped out into the snow. "If I don't come back down," I began. Collins nodded. "Sheriff will know what to do. Give it 3 days." He drove away quickly, leaving me alone on the mountain road. I checked my weapons and started the long walk back to my cabin. I had preparations to make before nightfall. The cabin was untouched since I'd left it, the board still in place over windows. Inside, everything was as I'd left it, except for one detail that made my heart stutter. The horseshoe above the door had been turned upside down, spilling its luck. I righted it with shaking hands. Night would fall in a few hours. I had to work quickly. Following the instructions in the sheriff's book, I gathered materials for the binding ritual. Some I had on hand, others I had to improvise. The silver bullets went into my rifle. The marked knife I strapped to my belt. As darkness fell, I made my final preparations. The ritual required the binding to take place at the creature's lair, the cave. I would have to lure it there somehow, perform the binding, and then complete the sacrifice. A life freely given. Mine. I'd made peace with this on the walk back. My life in exchange for stopping this thing, for protecting Davis, for ensuring it couldn't use my voice, my memories, to lure Lily to her death when she eventually came looking for me. I set out for the caves as the first stars appeared. The night was crystal clear, brutally cold. I moved quietly, alert for any sound or movement. At the cave entrance, I began setting up the ritual components according to the diagram. A circle of specific stones, symbols drawn in a mixture of ash and my own blood, bundles of herbs at cardinal points. The final component would be me, offering myself willingly once the creature was trapped within the circle. I heard it before I saw it, that wet, shuffling gait approaching through the trees. I stood my ground, knife in one hand, rifle in the other. It emerged into the clearing before the cave, still wearing its grotesque parody of Silas's features, though they had deteriorated further, flesh sloughing away to reveal something ancient underneath. It tilted its head, studying me with 2 intelligent eyes. "Clever prey," it said in that wrong, multi-tone voice. "Come to fight. Come to die." I raised my rifle, but didn't fire. I needed it closer, needed it to enter the circle. "I came to end this," I said, surprised at the steadiness of my voice. The creature laughed, the sound echoing unnaturally through the clearing. "Many have tried. All have failed. All have fed me, fed my children." Children. The words sent ice through my veins. Not one creature, but many. It sensed my fear, grinned with too many teeth. "Yes. Hungry now. Growing. Spreading. Soon we go down to the town. Feast on all the warm ones." It took a step forward. Another. I backed up slowly, drawing it toward the cave entrance, toward the circle. What happened next came so quickly I had no time to react. A figure burst from the trees behind the creature, a human figure wielding an axe. Silas. Not the twisted thing wearing his face, but Silas himself, bloodied and wounded, but very much alive. He brought the axe down on the creature's back with a roar of defiance. The monster shrieked, whirling to face this new threat. In the confusion, I fired the silver bullets, hitting the creature multiple times. It staggered but didn't fall. Silas swung the axe again, severing one of its elongated arms. Black ichor spurted from the wound. The creature howled, a sound so painful it seemed to crack the air itself, and lunged at Silas, remaining claws extended. I tackled it from behind, the momentum carrying all 3 of us into the ritual circle. What followed was chaos, claws slashing, the knife plunging, Silas's axe rising and falling. I was aware of pain, of blood, mine, Silas's, the black ichor of the creature. I managed to complete the binding words, my voice growing weaker with each phrase as blood leaked from a deep gash across my chest. The ground beneath us began to tremble. The symbols in the circle glowed with an unearthly light. The creature sensed the binding taking hold. It thrashed wildly, breaking free of our grip, trying to escape the circle. But it was too late. The ritual had begun. It needed only the final component, a life freely given. I dragged myself toward the center of the circle, the marked knife clutched in my failing grip. One last act, one last sacrifice. But Silas was faster. His hand closed over mine on the knife hilt. "No, son," he whispered, blood bubbling between his lips. "My time anyway. Been fighting these things all my life." Before I could stop him, he pulled the knife from my grasp and plunged it into his own heart. Tell Davis, remember the old ways. Keep up the rituals." Light flared blindingly from the circle, the creature's screams reaching a deafening pitch. Then darkness. I awoke at the hospital in Davis 3 days later. Sheriff Hayward was there when I opened my eyes. "Collins found you half frozen at the cave entrance," she said without preamble. No sign of Silas or anything else. I tried to speak, found my voice a raspy whisper. It worked. The binding worked. "Silas." Sheriff Hayward nodded solemnly. "We know. His family has been the guardian of that mountain for generations. His father died the same way in the 80s. She placed a hand on my arm. "The binding will hold for another generation. But eventually, someone will have to go back." They released me from the hospital a week later. I didn't return to the cabin, couldn't face those woods again. Instead, I took a small apartment in Davis. I told myself it was temporary, just until I recovered enough to move back to Pittsburgh. But deep down, I knew I would stay. Someone needed to remember, to keep the knowledge alive. Someone needed to be ready for the next cycle. Last week, I visited Silas's unmarked grave in the old section of the Davis Cemetery. I placed a horseshoe on his headstone, my small tribute to the man who saved my life, who saved the town. As I turned to leave, I noticed a symbol freshly carved into a nearby tree, 5 vertical lines crossed by 2 horizontal ones. A warning, a reminder. Winter is coming again soon, and with it, the hungry dark. My name is Valerie Mercer, 28 years old, and I moved to the tiny community of Helvetia in Randolph County, West Virginia 6 months ago. After finishing my doctoral research in cultural anthropology at Columbia, I was desperate for a change from New York's suffocating pace. When I discovered this Swiss-German settlement tucked away in the Appalachians with fewer than 60 residents, it seemed perfect for writing my book on dying folk traditions. What sealed the deal was finding an affordable rental property, an old farmhouse on 10 acres that backed up to a section of the Monongahela National Forest known locally as the Hollows. The farmhouse was a classic 2-story with weathered clapboard siding and a wraparound porch that had seen better days. The elderly owner, Mrs. Fisher, lived in the county nursing home now and was renting it out through her grandson, Marcus. He managed the local general store and was one of the few people under 40 who hadn't left for bigger cities. "Place needs some work," he admitted when showing me around. "But the rent's cheap, and you'll have all the peace and quiet you need for your writing." Looking back, I should have paid more attention to how his eyes never quite met mine when he mentioned the property's isolation. The locals were initially reserved, but warmed up once they realized I was genuinely interested in their traditions. Helvetia was founded in 1869 by Swiss immigrants, and they'd maintained many old-world customs, celebrating festivals like Fastnacht, their version of Mardi Gras, with elaborate masks and processions. I spent my days interviewing elders, documenting customs, and my evenings writing on the porch, watching fireflies emerge from the tree line as dusk settled over the mountains. The first 2 months were idyllic, productive, peaceful, exactly what I needed after years in academia. The trouble began in early October when the forest's colors reached their peak. I'd taken to hiking daily, exploring the woods behind my property. The trails were overgrown but still visible, winding deeper into densely forested hollows. On one such hike, I discovered an unusual clearing about 2 miles from the house. Perfect circle, maybe 30 feet across, completely devoid of vegetation. Just bare dirt, unnaturally dark. At its center stood a crude wooden post, weathered gray with age, carved with symbols I didn't recognize. Not Germanic or European, something older. I photographed the clearing, thinking it might be relevant to my research. That evening at the general store, I casually mentioned my discovery to Marcus while checking out. The change in his demeanor was immediate. His friendly smile vanished, and he dropped the can he was scanning. "You found the witch's circle," he said, voice barely above a whisper. When I pressed for details, he glanced around nervously. "We don't go to the Hollows, Dr. Mercer. There's history there best left alone." He refused to elaborate, quickly finishing my transaction and finding an excuse to help another customer. That night brought the first disturbance, scratching at my bedroom window around 3 a.m. I assumed it was a tree branch, but when I turned on the exterior lights, nothing was there. No trees near enough to touch the second-story window. The scratching continued for nearly an hour before stopping abruptly. I told myself it was probably raccoons on the roof, but sleep eluded me the rest of the night. In the morning, I found thin, deliberate scratches on the outside of the glass, 3 parallel lines, too uniform for animal claws. October progressed, and with it came increasingly disturbing occurrences. Objects in the house moved when I wasn't looking. My digital recorder captured whispers during interviews that weren't audible in person. Most concerning were the footprints I found in the dew-covered grass each morning, small, like a child's, leading from the forest to my porch and back again. When I mentioned these to Mrs. Zeller, the octogenarian who ran the town's small museum, she crossed herself and muttered something in the local Swiss-German dialect before suggesting I visit Father Thomas at the community church. Father Thomas wasn't what I expected. Instead of the elderly traditional priest I'd imagined, he was mid-40s, with a weathered face that suggested hard living before finding his calling. After hearing my experiences, he sighed deeply. "Every generation, someone new discovers the Hollows," he said, pouring us both generous measures of whiskey. "Usually outsiders who don't know to stay away." He explained that according to local legend, the Hollows had been cursed ground long before European settlers arrived. The Native Americans had avoided it, warning the first Swiss settlers about wrong spirits that lived in those particular valleys. "The witch's circle you found was made by Hester Sutpen in 1891, he continued, retrieving an old leather-bound book from his desk. "Not a witch in the traditional sense, but a woman who came here fleeing accusations in Massachusetts. She claimed to have found something ancient living in the Hollows, something that offered her power in exchange for offerings." He hesitated, then added grimly, "Children went missing that winter. 7 in total. They were never found, but dolls made from twigs and hair began appearing on porches. After the townspeople burned Hester in her cabin, the disappearances stopped, but strange happenings never did. Every few decades, the disturbances intensify. Like now, armed with this unsettling history, I became more cautious but not deterred. As an anthropologist, I recognized the classic elements of folk horror narratives: isolated communities, historical trauma, supernatural scapegoating. I was convinced there must be rational explanations for what I was experiencing. Perhaps locals were playing tricks on the outsider, or maybe the house had structural issues causing the strange noises. I installed trail cameras around the property and motion-activated lights. If someone was trying to scare me off, I'd catch them. The next day, I visited the County Historical Society to research Hester Sutpen. The records were sparse, mostly newspaper clippings about her trial and execution, but one detail caught my attention. The prosecutor had entered into evidence a journal allegedly written by Hester, describing rituals performed in the circle to communicate with entities she called the Waiting Ones. The journal itself wasn't in the archives, listed only as missing in the catalog. When I asked the archivist about it, she shook her head. That journal disappeared in the 70s, along with the researcher who was studying it. Some things are best left forgotten, honey. That night, a powerful storm rolled through the mountains. Wind howled around the farmhouse, rain lashed against the windows, and thunder shook the foundations. I huddled in the living room with candles and a flashlight after the power predictably went out. Around midnight, between thunderclaps, I heard what sounded like singing. High, childlike voices coming from the direction of the forest. I told myself it was just the wind, but the melody was too structured, too deliberate. The words were indistinct, but had a sing-song quality that raised the hair on my arms. Morning revealed a disturbing scene. My trail cameras had been smashed, their memory cards missing. More alarming were the dozens of crude dolls hanging from tree branches along the forest edge, each made from twigs bound with what looked disturbingly like human hair in various colors. Some had features scratched into small stones that served as heads, simplistic eyes, and gaping mouths. I photographed everything before taking them down, trying to maintain scientific detachment despite my pounding heart. As I removed the last doll, I realized the singing had returned, barely audible, coming from deep within the hollows. Against every instinct screaming at me to leave, I followed the sound. The forest felt different that morning. The air unusually still, mist clinging to the ground despite the late morning sun above the canopy. The singing led me past the witch's circle, deeper into the hollows than I'd ventured before. Eventually, I emerged into another clearing, this one natural-looking and dominated by an enormous dead oak tree. Hanging from its branches were more dolls, hundreds of them, some looking decades old, others freshly made. The singing stopped the moment I entered the clearing. Transfixed by the macabre display, I failed to notice I wasn't alone until a voice spoke behind me. "You shouldn't be here, Dr. Mercer." I whirled to find Marcus standing at the clearing's edge, his usually friendly face grave. "No one should be here, especially not now." He explained he'd been following me since I left the farmhouse, concerned after seeing the dolls. When I demanded explanations, he sighed heavily. "It's almost Samhain, Halloween to you outsiders. The veil between worlds thins this time of year, and the waiting ones grow stronger. They've noticed you. They've always had a hunger for the curious." The rational part of my brain argued this was elaborate local superstition, perhaps even a coordinated effort to scare away an outsider prying into community secrets. But standing in that clearing, beneath hundreds of watching twig faces, rationality felt fragile. Marcus seemed genuinely frightened, his hands trembling as he urged me to leave. "Come back to town. Stay at the inn until November passes. The farmhouse isn't safe now. It's too close to their territory, and they've marked you as interesting." When I hesitated, he added, "Mrs. Fisher never told you why she moved to the nursing home, did she? She didn't have dementia or physical problems. She left after finding her grandson's empty clothes laid out perfectly on his bed one morning. Tommy was 7. They never found him." I agreed to return to town with Marcus, at least temporarily. As we turned to leave, a child's laugh echoed through the clearing, clear as a bell despite no visible source. Marcus grabbed my arm, his face ashen. "Don't run," he whispered. "They enjoy the chase." We walked briskly, following the overgrown path. The forest had fallen completely silent. No birds, no insects, not even the sound of wind in the leaves. Just our footsteps and increasingly labored breathing as we maintained our forced calm. About halfway back to the farmhouse, I glanced over my shoulder. 3 small figures stood motionless among the trees, watching us. They appeared to be children, but their proportions were subtly wrong, limbs too long, heads slightly oversized. When I blinked, they were gone. Once back at the house, I hastily packed essentials while Marcus waited nervously on the porch, shotgun across his lap. "They won't come into town," he assured me as we drove away. "Too many people, too many eyes. The inn's been blessed by every denomination that's passed through these mountains. You'll be safe there." I nodded, watching the farmhouse recede in the side mirror. Just before it disappeared from view, I could have sworn I saw small figures emerge from the forest edge, standing in a perfect line, watching our departure. I said nothing to Marcus, uncertain whether my eyes were playing tricks or if the legends of the hollows were proving terrifyingly real. The Helvetia Inn was a charming 2-story building in the Swiss chalet style, run by an elderly couple named the Kunsleys. They didn't seem surprised when Marcus explained I needed a room indefinitely. If anything, they appeared to have been expecting me. Mrs. Kunsley showed me to a cozy room overlooking the town square, its walls decorated with traditional alpine landscapes and cuckoo clocks. "We've prepared the iron room for you," she said matter-of-factly, pointing out the horseshoe above the door and the strange symbols painted on the windowsills. "Best to be careful this time of year." That evening, most of the town gathered at the community hall for what Marcus had described as just dinner, but was clearly a meeting about me. The atmosphere was tense as Father Thomas addressed the room. "It started again," he said gravely. "The signs are the same as 97, and before that, 68. The waiting ones are stirring." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. An elderly man stood, pointing at me. "It's her fault. Poking around the hollows, disturbing what should be left alone." Others nodded in agreement until Marcus stepped forward in my defense, explaining I'd been ignorant of the local history, not malicious. Mrs. Zeller from the museum shuffled to the front, leaning heavily on her cane. "Blame solves nothing," she chided. "What's done is done. The question is what we do now." All eyes turned to Father Thomas, who sighed heavily. "Traditional protections first. Iron at all entryways, salt lines, the usual wards. No one goes out after dark alone. Children stay indoors. And we need to find Hester's journal. Without it, we can't perform the binding ritual that worked in '97. The room fell silent. Finally, I spoke up. "What exactly are the waiting ones? What do they want?" The silence deepened, uncomfortable glances exchanged until Mrs. Zeller answered simply. "They want to exist here. They need vessels to walk among us. That's why they take the curious ones. Those who seek them out become doorways." That night, unable to sleep despite the supposed protection of the Iron Room, I began researching on my laptop. Historical documents mentioned similar phenomena across Appalachia. Disappearances followed by twig dolls, strange sounds in the forests, entire communities abandoned after clusters of missing children. Anthropologically, the pattern suggested a regional folklore that had evolved similarly across isolated communities, but my experiences at the farmhouse made me question pure academic explanations. Around 3 a.m., my laptop screen flickered, then displayed a single line of text that I definitely hadn't typed. "We remember your face." I slammed the laptop shut, heart racing. A moment later, tapping started at my window, gentle, rhythmic, like small fingernails on glass. Drawing on my last reserves of courage, I approached the window and peered through the curtains. The street below was empty, but on the windowsill outside sat a freshly made twig doll. Its head was a round stone with my facial features crudely scratched into it, and bound in its twig arms was a scrap of paper. I cracked the window just enough to retrieve it. Written in what looked like dried blood were the words, "The Hollows miss you." Sleep was impossible after that. At dawn, I took the doll and note to Father Thomas, who examined them grimly. "They've formed an attachment to you," he said, placing the items in a metal box filled with salt. "This goes beyond their usual pattern of testing boundaries. They see you as a way in." When I asked why me specifically, he hesitated before answering. "The waiting ones are drawn to those who document, who record. In the past, it was journalists, photographers. Hester was a diarist before she became their conduit. You're a perfect target, an anthropologist creating a permanent record of this place and its stories." Over the next few days, the incidents escalated throughout town. Children reported seeing their missing classmates standing at the edge of the forest after school. Livestock were found arranged in geometric patterns in fields, alive but unnaturally docile. Most disturbing were the whispers people heard in their homes at night, voices of long-dead relatives sharing impossible secrets. The town implemented Father Thomas's protective measures, but fear continued to spread. Everyone looked at me with suspicion whenever a new incident occurred, as if my mere presence was amplifying the phenomena. I spent my days in the community archives and museum, searching for clues about Hester's missing journal. Mrs. Zeller provided access to materials not shown to casual visitors, letters, diaries, and town records detailing similar cycles of disturbances dating back to Helvetia's founding. One journal entry from 1903 mentioned the witch's final hiding place being within sight of God but beyond man's reach. After staring at those words for hours, I realized what they might mean. The church steeple was the highest point in town, overlooking everything. What could be seen from there, but not easily reached? The answer came when examining old architectural plans of the church. The steeple had a rarely accessed reliquary chamber just below the bell, originally designed to house sacred items. With Father Thomas's reluctant permission, I climbed the narrow, spiral stairs to this forgotten space. The small hexagonal room was thick with dust except for one corner, where the floorboards showed signs of regular disturbance. My heart pounding, I pried up the loose boards to reveal a small cavity containing an object wrapped in blackened cloth. Hester's journal, hidden by generations of priests who understood its danger but couldn't bring themselves to destroy it. The journal was a disturbing document, part diary, part grimoire, chronicling Hester's discovery of the waiting ones and her gradual corruption by their influence. She described them as ancient beyond human reckoning and hungry for sensation. According to Hester, they existed in a parallel space that occasionally overlapped with ours, particularly in places with thin boundaries, like the Hollows. Most chilling was her description of their bargain. They granted her influence over the town in exchange for vessels, children whose natural openness to the extraordinary made them perfect conduits for these entities to experience our world. Father Thomas and the town elders convened an emergency meeting after I presented the journal. The binding ritual Hester had eventually documented, created in a moment of remorse before her execution, required specific timing, midnight on Samhain at the Witch's Circle. It also required someone marked by the Waiting Ones to read the incantation. All eyes turned to me. The implications were clear. I would have to return to the Hollows, to the very epicenter of this supernatural disturbance. Marcus protested vehemently, but I understood there was no alternative. The incidents were worsening daily, and 2 children had reported seeing their shadow friends inside homes despite the protections. We spent the next week preparing. I memorized the binding ritual while others gathered the required materials. Iron nails forged in silence, water from 7 springs, ash from a lightning-struck oak, and most disturbingly, small amounts of blood from 7 volunteers, myself included. Father Thomas explained that magic in these mountains had always required sacrifice, not necessarily life, but essence freely given. The Waiting Ones take without permission, he said. Our willingness to give creates a counterforce they cannot easily overcome. The night before Halloween, Marcus found me on the inn's porch, watching distant lightning flicker over the mountains. Without preamble, he confessed why he felt responsible for protecting me. Tommy Fisher wasn't the first child I've lost to the Hollows, he said quietly. My sister went missing in '97 during the last cycle. I was 12. She was 7. Emma followed voices into the forest one evening while our parents were at church. His hands trembled as he continued. They found her clothes by the dead oak the next morning. That's when Father Thomas's predecessor performed the last binding ritual. It worked for a generation, but these things always return. The mountains have long memories. Halloween arrived with an oppressive atmosphere, the air unnaturally still, heavy clouds hanging low over the valley. The town resembled a fortress preparing for siege, doors and windows locked by mid-afternoon, protective symbols freshly painted, families huddled together in central rooms of their homes. At sunset, our small procession departed for the Hollows. Father Thomas, Marcus, 3 town elders including Mrs. Zeller, and myself. Each carried items for the ritual except Marcus, who gripped his shotgun with white knuckles. It won't stop them, Father Thomas had warned, but iron shot might slow them down if necessary. The forest felt alive in a way that defied rational explanation. Shadows moved independently of their casting objects. The temperature dropped dramatically with each step deeper into the Hollows. No one spoke as we followed the overgrown path, our flashlight beams seeming to illuminate less distance than they should. When we reached the Witch's Circle, Father Thomas immediately began preparing the ritual space according to Hester's instructions. Iron nails at cardinal points, a smaller circle of salt within the larger bare earth circle, 7 candles of rendered fat mixed with graveyard dirt. As midnight approached, the forest around us fell into supernatural silence. Even our footsteps seemed muted, as if sound itself was being consumed by the thickening darkness. The first indication something had changed was the candles. Their flames turned blue simultaneously, burning with unnatural intensity. Then came the whispers, sourceless and omnidirectional, speaking words just beyond comprehension. Mrs. Zeller gasped, pointing toward the trees. Small figures had appeared at the perimeter of the clearing, child-sized but moving with unsettling fluidity, their features indistinct except for unnaturally wide eyes that reflected our candlelight like animals. Father Thomas nodded grimly at me. It was time. I stepped into the inner circle and opened Hester's journal to the marked page. The binding ritual was written in a language I didn't recognize, but Hester had included phonetic pronunciations. As I began reading, the air around us became viscous, resisting movement. The figures at the forest edge crept closer, their forms flickering between childlike appearances and something else, elongated limbs, 2 wide mouths. Marcus and the others formed a protective ring around me. but their presence felt increasingly insubstantial as the ritual progressed. The words burned my throat as I spoke them, each syllable forcing its way out as if fighting against some invisible resistance. Halfway through the incantation, one of the entities broke from the tree line, moving with impossible speed toward our circle. Marcus fired his shotgun, the blast oddly muffled, and the creature dissipated into black mist before reforming seconds later. Father Thomas thrust an iron rod through its center, causing it to emit a shriek that resonated at a frequency that made blood trickle from my ears. Still, I continued the ritual, each word feeling like broken glass in my mouth. As I neared the final passages, the ground beneath us began to tremble. The candle flames stretched upward, forming a cage of blue fire around the inner circle. The entities pressed against this barrier, their forms growing more substantial, more wrong with each passing moment. Through their shifting appearances, I began recognizing faces. Children reported missing over decades, including a boy who must have been Tommy Fisher and a girl with Marcus's eyes who could only be his sister. But behind these familiar faces lurked something ancient and hungry, wearing human memories like ill-fitting masks. The final words of the ritual required the sacrifice, blood freely given from 7 souls. Father Thomas uncorked the vial containing our combined blood and handed it to me. According to Hester's notes, I had to consume it while speaking the closing incantation. The thought was revolting, but the alternative was unthinkable. As I raised the vial to my lips, a voice cut through the chaotic energy surrounding us. A child's voice, but layered with something inhuman. "Valerie," it called sweetly, "we can show you stories no anthropologist has ever recorded. Knowledge no human has possessed. All we need is acknowledgement. Invitation." For one terrible moment, temptation gripped me. Academic recognition, unprecedented research, answers to mysteries that had haunted these mountains for centuries. The entities sensed my hesitation, pressing harder against the barrier, their whispers becoming more enticing, more specific, offering exact details about prehistoric cultures that had once inhabited these valleys, secrets buried beneath centuries of settlement. My purpose as a scholar had always been to uncover forgotten histories. Here was the ultimate opportunity, directly from entities who had witnessed it all. In that moment of weakness, the barrier flickered. One entity, wearing the face of a young girl with Marcus's eyes, slipped partially through. Its hand, too long and jointed wrong, reached toward me. Sister brought another vessel. It said in Emma's voice, but wrong, distorted. "We've waited. We've been so patient." Behind me, I heard Marcus make a sound of pure anguish. That broke my trance. These weren't benevolent knowledge keepers. They were parasites using human desires and memories as bait. I uncorked the vial and swallowed its contents in one motion, the metallic taste flooding my mouth as I spoke the final words of the binding. The effect was immediate and violent. The ground cracked beneath the witch's circle, blue fire racing along the fissures like lightning. The entities contorted, their borrowed human appearances stretching and tearing to reveal glimpses of their true forms. Angular geometries that hurt the eye, appendages that moved through more dimensions than should be possible. Their screams resonated at frequencies that made reality itself seem to vibrate. The clearing filled with swirling darkness that formed a vortex centered on the circle, pulling the entities back from our world. But something was wrong. According to Hester's journal, the vortex should have closed completely, sealing the waiting ones away for another generation. Instead, it stabilized into a pulsing tear in reality about 3 feet wide. Father Thomas shouted over the maelstrom that something was anchoring them, preventing the full binding. My eyes fell on the entity with Emma's face, now half consumed by the vortex, but still partly in our world, its hand stretched toward Marcus. His expression showed devastating recognition. Despite the horror partially revealed beneath her features, some essential part of his sister remained. "They've been using her as an anchor for 28 years, Mrs. Zeller cried out, her voice barely audible above the chaos. "They never fully left after the last binding because they had her." The implication was clear and terrible. To complete the ritual, Marcus would have to let go of the hope that some part of his sister might still exist. He would have to allow whatever remained of Emma to be banished along with the waiting ones. Tears streamed down his face as he looked from the creature to me. "I can't," he whispered. She's still in there somewhere. I felt her watching over me all these years. The entity exploited his hesitation, Emma's voice emerging clearer. Marcus, don't let them take me away again. I've been so alone. It was a perfect mimicry of a frightened child, calculated to target his deepest regret. The other entities began pushing against the weakening vortex, sensing opportunity. Father Thomas grabbed Marcus's shoulders. That's not your sister anymore, he said firmly. It hasn't been for 28 years. They're using her memory, her face. Emma is gone, son. I felt the binding ritual weakening with each passing second, the blood sacrifice burning through my system too quickly as the vortex faltered. We were losing the battle. In desperation, I reached for the only weapon I had left, truth. Marcus, I called out. Real love means letting go when holding on causes harm. Emma would want you to protect the living children of Helvetia. His eyes met mine, agonized but clearing. He nodded once, resolute through his tears, and turned to the entity wearing his sister's face. Goodbye, Emma, he said softly. I'm sorry I couldn't save you then. I'm saying you now. He raised his shotgun, loaded with iron shot, and fired directly into the entity. It shrieked, its form collapsing inward as the vortex seized it completely. The tear in reality contracted violently, pulling the remaining entities back into whatever dimension they inhabited. The ground sealed itself with a thunderous crack, leaving only scorched earth where the witch's circle had been. The binding was complete, the anchors severed, the waiting ones banished for another generation. We stood in stunned silence for several minutes, exhausted and dazed. Father Thomas was the first to recover, gathering the ritual implements with practiced efficiency. It's done, he said quietly. They'll be back someday. They always find new anchors, new weaknesses, but not for many years. Mrs. Zeller placed a gnarled hand on Marcus's shoulder as he stared at the spot where the entity with his sister's face had vanished. No words could comfort such loss, especially one experienced twice across decades. I felt like an intruder witnessing his grief, yet I was irrevocably connected to these people now through our shared ordeal. The walk back to town was solemn but lighter somehow, as if the forest itself had exhaled after holding its breath for too long. Birds began calling again. Nocturnal creatures rustled in the underbrush, normal sounds returning to a landscape that had been suspended in unnatural silence. Dawn was breaking as we reached Helvetia, pink lights spilling over the eastern mountains. Townspeople emerged from their homes, faces anxious until they saw our procession returning intact. Word spread quickly that the binding had succeeded. The relief was palpable. Children once again permitted outside as parents relaxed their vigilance. 2 days later, I checked out of the Helvetia Inn. My research on folk traditions would continue elsewhere. I'd seen enough of the hollows to last a lifetime. As I packed my car, Marcus approached with a small wooden box. The town council wanted you to have this, he said, handing it to me. Inside was a simple iron key on a leather cord. It's a tradition. Anyone who helps protect Helvetia becomes an honorary citizen. This key used to open the original town hall. Now it's just symbolic, but... He trailed off, emotions still raw from our experience. I'm sorry about Emma, I said softly. About all of it. He nodded, looking toward the mountains where morning mist still clung to the hollows. I think I can finally mourn her properly now, he replied. For 28 years, I've been caught between hope and dread, wondering if she was truly gone or somehow still out there. Now I know. His expression hardened. But they'll be back. Different faces, different tactics, but the same hunger. When that time comes, Helvetia will need to remember. As I drove away from Helvetia, I glanced in my rearview mirror at the receding valley. For a moment, I thought I saw small figures at the forest edge, watching my departure. But it was just children playing, normal and carefree in the autumn sunshine. The iron key rested against my chest beneath my shirt, a tangible reminder that some boundaries must be maintained, some stories left untold. My book would document Helvetia's Swiss-German festivals, their music, their craft traditions, but nothing about the hollows or the waiting ones. Some knowledge isn't meant to be preserved. Some doors are best left closed. 6 months later, working at my new university position in Arizona, I received a package from Marcus, a newspaper clipping about unusual archaeological findings in caves near Helvetia. The note attached read simply, "Some history should stay buried." They're always looking for new storytellers. I understood his warning. The waiting ones were contained, but not destroyed. Their hunger for vessels who would document and thus validate their existence unchanged. I locked the clipping in a drawer with Hester's journal, which Father Thomas had entrusted to me as both burden and responsibility. Sometimes at night, I dream of the hollows, of twisted trees and watching eyes, of children's laughter that isn't quite right. I wake clutching the iron key, its metal warm against my palm as if it's been absorbing my fear. The academic in me still wonders about the true nature of the waiting ones, whether they were interdimensional entities, manifestations of collective trauma, or something else entirely. But the part of me that stood in that circle, that spoke those words and tasted that blood, knows better than to seek those answers. Some curiosities should remain unsatisfied. Some hollows should remain unexplored. I'm Elias Whitaker, 34 years old, and I swear I never thought I'd end up here. My boots sink into the damp soil outside my cabin near Elkins, West Virginia, the air thick with pine and something sour I can't place. I moved out here 6 months ago, chasing quiet after a messy divorce. The city was suffocating, too many voices, too many eyes. Out here, it's just me, my dog Rusty, and a rifle I barely know how to use. The cabin's small, cedar walls creaking at night, but it's home. I've got solar panels, a well, and enough canned food to last a year. Off-grid living sounded like freedom. Now it feels like I'm the only soul for miles, and that's starting to feel wrong. My closest neighbor, if you can call her that, is Maud Hensley, a 70-year-old widow who lives 3 miles down the ridge. She's tough as nails, always warning me about the old ways and things that linger in these woods. I thought she was just eccentric, spinning tales about spirits tied to the land. Her grandson, Caleb, 19, helps her out sometimes. He's quiet, always watching, like he knows something I don't. I met them when I bought the cabin, and Maud gave me a carved wooden charm, said to keep the dark at bay. I hung it above the door, more to humor her than anything. The first few months were fine. I chopped wood, fixed leaks, learned to gut fish from the creek. Rusty would bark at squirrels, and I'd laugh, feeling like I was finally getting it together. But lately, the forest feels different, heavier. I catch myself staring into the trees, waiting for something to stare back. It's hard to explain, but it's like the silence isn't empty anymore. I tell myself it's just me adjusting, that living alone messes with your head. Still, I keep my rifle loaded now, propped by the door. I started noticing little things about a month ago. My garden, nothing fancy, just some carrots and potatoes, keeps getting dug up. Not like animals, though. The holes are too neat, almost deliberate. I blamed it on raccoons, but Rusty hasn't been chasing anything. He just sits by the porch, whining, staring at the tree line. I tried asking Maud about it when I saw her last week. She got real quiet, said, "You been leaving offerings, boy?" I laughed it off, but her eyes were dead serious. The locals in Elkins talk about the woods like they're alive. There's this old myth about the hollow ones, spirits or something worse, tied to the land since the coal mines collapsed in the 1800s. They say miners who died in the dark didn't stay dead, they changed. I heard it at the general store, some old guy muttering about how the hollow ones guard their territory, punish anyone who takes too much from the earth. I'm not superstitious, but out here, stories start feeling real. Maud told me to burn sage and leave out bread or whiskey by the creek as an offering. I didn't do it, seemed like nonsense. But last night, I found a circle of stones around my fire pit, stones I didn't put there. They were smooth, cold, arranged like a clock face. I kicked them apart, heart pounding, telling myself it was kids messing around. Except, there's no one out here. No kids, no cars, no nothing. Just me and Rusty, and he wouldn't stop growling. I keep thinking about Caleb, too. He came by a few days ago to drop off some firewood Maud sent. He barely spoke, just kept glancing at the woods. When I mentioned the garden, he mumbled, "You should leave something out. They don't like it when you don't." I pressed him, but he clammed up, left fast. I don't know what's got me more on edge, his words or the way he wouldn't meet my eyes. I'm starting to wonder if I made a mistake coming here. The cabin's supposed to be my sanctuary, but it's starting to feel like a trap. I lock the door every night, check the windows, keep Rusty close. I tell myself I'm overreacting, that it's just the isolation playing tricks. But deep down, I know something's off. The air's too still, the shadows too deep. I catch myself holding my breath, listening for something I can't name. It's like the forest is waiting for me to make a move. I'm not sure what's out there, but I can feel it. It's not just the stones or the garden. It's the way the woods seem to lean in closer every night. I keep Maud's charm above the door, but it doesn't feel like enough. Something's watching, and I don't think it's human. I just hope I'm wrong. Morning light barely cuts through the fog today, and I'm out by the garden, staring at another ruined patch. The carrots are gone, roots and all, like someone yanked them out with purpose. I kneel, running my fingers over the soil. It's too smooth, no claw marks, no chaos. My stomach twists. This isn't animals. Rusty's pacing nearby, tail low, eyes locked on the trees. I mutter, "What the hell's going on, boy?" But he just whines. I decide to set up a trail cam by the garden tonight. If it's kids or some creep, I'll catch them. If it's something else, I don't let myself finish that thought. I head to Maud's place, needing answers. The 3-mile trek through the forest feels longer today, branches snapping underfoot like brittle bones. Her cabin's weathered, smoke curling from the chimney. She's on the porch, carving something small and wooden. "Elias," she says, not looking up. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I tell her about the garden, the stones. Her knife pauses, and she mutters, "You didn't leave no offerings, did you?" I roll my eyes, but she grabs my arm, her grip bony but strong. The hollow ones don't take kindly to greed. I pull away, annoyed. "I'm not greedy, Maud. I'm just trying to live." She shakes her head, says I'm taking from the land, without giving back. She hands me a jar of whiskey, tells me to pour it by the creek at dusk. I take it, mostly to shut her up, but I'm not buying this spirit nonsense. Still, her words stick with me as I hike back. The forest feels too quiet, like it's holding its breath. I keep glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see Caleb lurking. He's been too weird lately. Back at the cabin, I check the well, another problem. The water's cloudy, smells like rust. I've got enough stored to last a week, but if the well's shot, I'm screwed. I spend the afternoon cleaning the pump, cursing under my breath. My hands are raw by the time I'm done, and the water's still off. I'm starting to feel trapped, like the land's turning against me. I think about calling a repair guy from Elkins, but the nearest road's a 2-hour hike, and my truck's battery died last month. I'm on my own. Dusk hits, and I set up the trail cam, angling it toward the garden. I'm fiddling with the settings when I notice Rusty's gone still, staring at the creek. The whiskey jar's in my pack, and I scoff, feeling stupid, but I grab it anyway. I trudge to the creek, the air chilly and thick. I pour a splash of whiskey onto the bank, muttering, "There, happy now?" It feels ridiculous, like I'm playing into Maud's fairy tale. But as the liquid sinks into the dirt, the air shifts, like a pressure change before a storm. I freeze, heart thudding. I'm halfway back to the cabin when I hear it. A low hum, not quite human, coming from the trees. It's faint, like a voice underwater, but it's there. I stop, gripping the jar so tight my knuckles ache. Rusty's hackles are up, but he's not barking, just trembling. I whisper, "It's nothing," but my voice shakes. The hum fades, and I hurry back, locking the door behind me. I tell myself it was wind or an animal, but deep down, I know better. Something's out there, and it's not just watching anymore. That night, I can't sleep. The cabin feels too small, the walls pressing in. I keep the rifle by my bed, one hand on Rusty's collar. Around 2 a.m., I check the trail cam's live feed on my phone. The garden's empty, but the footage glitches, flickering like something's messing with the signal. Then, for a split second, I see it, a shape, tall and thin, standing at the edge of the frame. It's gone before I can blink, but my mouth goes dry. I replay the clip, heart pounding, but it's just static now. I'm up till dawn, staring at the door, wondering what I've gotten myself into. Maud's words keep looping in my head. They don't like it when you don't. I think about Caleb, his weird glances, the way he avoids the woods after dark. Did he know something was coming? I decide to confront him tomorrow, get some straight answers. I can't keep ignoring this. The whiskey, the stones, the hum. It's all adding up to something scary, something I don't understand. As the sun rises, I'm exhausted but wired, like I've had too much coffee. Rusty's still on edge, and the forest looks different now, like it's hiding something. I grab the rifle, check the locks again. Whatever's out there, it's getting closer. I can feel it in my bones, like a storm about to break. I just hope I'm ready when it does. I'm out by the creek at dawn, rifle slung over my shoulder, looking for Caleb. The air's damp, and the forest feels like it's closing in, trees leaning closer than yesterday. I called Maud's landline, but no answer, just static. Caleb's been dodging me, and after last night's trail cam glitch, I need to know what he's hiding. Rusty trots beside me, ears twitching, but he's quieter than usual, like he senses something I can't. The creek's running low, and I spot the spot where I poured the whiskey. The dirt's disturbed, like something clawed at it. My gut lurches. This is getting too disturbing. I track toward Maud's, the path familiar but wrong today. The birds aren't singing, and the silence is heavy, like a blanket smothering sound. Halfway there, I find a tree with deep gouges in the bark, fresh and jagged, too high for a bear. I touch the marks, my fingers trembling. They're cold, like the tree's bleeding ice. I mutter, "What the hell?" And Rusty growls, low and steady. I keep moving, but my heart's hammering. Something's been here, and it wasn't human. Maud's cabin comes into view, but it's too still. The porch is empty, no smoke from the chimney. I knock, calling her name, but the door's ajar. I push it open, rifle ready, and step inside. The place smells like damp wood and something metallic. Maud. Caleb. No answer. The kitchen's a mess, plates smashed, a chair overturned. My pulse spikes. On the table, there's a wooden carving like the one Maud gave me, but it's split in half, blackened like it was burned. This isn't right. It's scary, like the air itself is warning me to run. I search the cabin, finding nothing but chaos. Maud's bed is unmade, blankets torn. Caleb's jacket is on the floor, one sleeve ripped. I'm about to leave when I see it through the window. A figure, tall and gaunt, standing at the tree line. It's humanoid but wrong. Limbs too long, head tilted like it's listening. I freeze, breath caught in my throat. Rusty barks, sharp and frantic, and the figure slips into the shadows. I blink, and it's gone, but my skin's crawling. That was no person. I bolt back to my cabin, Rusty at my heels, every snap of a twig making me jump. The forest feels alive now, watching, waiting. I keep seeing that figure in my head, its unnatural shape burned into my brain. Was that a hollow one? Maud's stories flood back. Miners who didn't die, who became something else, guarding the land with cruel intent. I thought it was folklore, but now I'm not so sure. Whatever it is, it's real, and it's here. My cabin's in sight when I notice the doors open. I locked it. I know I did. Inside, the place is trashed. My table's flipped, books scattered, and the trail cams smashed on the floor. My chest tightens. This wasn't a random break-in. Something was looking for me. I checked the bedroom, and there, on my pillow, is a smooth stone like the ones from the fire pit. But this one's etched with a symbol, sharp and angular. It feels wrong to touch, like it's pulsing with something dark. I shove it in my pocket, hands shaking. This is beyond disturbing now. It's a nightmare. I grab my pack, stuff it with food, ammo, and a flashlight. I can't stay here. I need to find Maud or Caleb, figure out what's happening. Rusty's whining, but I leash him tight. As I step outside, I hear that hum again, louder now, coming from all directions. It's not one voice, it's many, overlapping, like a chorus of whispers. My blood runs cold. I swing the rifle up, scanning the trees, but there's nothing. Just the hum, growing, pressing against my skull. I start toward town, hoping to find help, but the path feels different, like the forest is shifting around me. I pass a clearing and stop dead. There's a circle of stones, just like the one by my fire pit, but bigger, with bones scattered inside. Small, like rabbits, but too many. I gag, backing away. The hum spikes, and I swear I see movement in the trees, shapes darting just out of sight. They're circling me, closing in. I'm not alone anymore. I'm running now, Rusty pulling at the leash, my breath ragged. The forest feels like a maze, every tree a threat. I don't know if Maud and Caleb are alive, but I can't shake the feeling they tried to warn me. The hollow ones, or whatever these things are, they're not just stories. They're here, and they're angry. I just don't know why, or what they want from me. But I'm starting to think I'm not getting out of these woods. I'm sprinting through the forest, branches clawing at my face, Rusty's leash tangled in my fist. The hum's everywhere now, a sickening drone that makes my teeth ache. The trees blur past, but I swear they're shifting, guiding me deeper instead of toward Elkins. My pack's heavy, rifle slapping my back, but I don't stop. Those shapes, those hollow ones, are out there. They're long, twisted forms flickering in my peripheral vision. I can't see them clearly, but I feel them, like a noose tightening. My chest burns, and I'm muttering, "Just keep moving, Elias, don't look back." But the forest is alive, and it's not letting me go. I stumble into a ravine, sliding down wet leaves, Rusty yelping as we hit the bottom. The hum spikes, and I see them, 3 figures, tall and skeletal, standing at the ravine's edge. Their faces are wrong, like smudged charcoal, eyes glinting like oil. I scream, scrambling to my feet, and fire the rifle. The shot echoes, but they don't flinch, just tilt their heads in unison. Rusty's barking, pulling me toward a narrow path. I run, heart pounding, knowing I'm in a life or death mess. These things aren't human, there's something worse. The path spits me out near an old coal mine, its entrance a black maw in the hillside. I remember Maud's stories. The hollow ones were miners, trapped, changed. I don't want to go in, but the hum's closing in, and I hear footsteps now, not human, too deliberate. I duck inside, dragging Rusty, my flashlight beam shaking. The air's damp, smelling of rot and metal. The tunnel's tight, walls slick with something that isn't water. I whisper, "We're okay, boy," but I'm lying. This place is a tomb, and I've just walked into it. I move deeper, the hum muffled but still there, like it's in my skull. My flashlight catches symbols on the walls, like the one on the stone in my pocket, jagged, unnatural. I'm shaking, realizing this mine's theirs, a shrine or a lair. I hear a scrape behind me, spin, and see nothing but shadows. Rusty's growling, ears flat. I keep going, hoping for another exit, but the tunnel splits, and I pick left, praying it's right. My gut says I'm being herded, but I've got no choice. A scream echoes, not mine, human, female, Maud. I freeze, torn. It's coming from a side tunnel. I want to run, but if she's alive, I can't leave her. I creep toward the sound, rifle up, heart in my throat. The tunnel opens to a chamber, and I gag. Bones everywhere, animal and human, piled like offerings. Maud's there, tied to a post, eyes wide, mouth gagged. Caleb's beside her, but he's not bound. He's carving something into the dirt, chanting low. My blood runs cold. He's with them. I aim the rifle, shouting, "Caleb, what the hell?" He looks up, eyes empty, and says, "You didn't listen, Elias. They need their due." Before I can react, a hollow one lunges from the dark, clawing my arm. I fire, the shot deafening, and it staggers but doesn't fall. I grab Maud, cut her ropes, and we bolt, Rusty leading. Caleb doesn't follow, he's theirs now. The hum's a roar, and I feel the creatures behind us, their presence like ice in my veins. Maud's sobbing, muttering about failing the land. We find a collapsed tunnel with a sliver of daylight above. I boost Maud up, then Rusty, my arm screaming with pain. The hollow ones are close. I hear their claws on stone. I climb, rocks crumbling, and pull myself out into the forest. We're free, but the hum doesn't stop. I glance back, and they're at the entrance, not chasing, just watching. It's like they know something I don't. We run toward Elkins. The town's lights faint in the distance, but I'm not sure we're safe yet. Maud's limping, barely keeping up, and I'm lightheaded from blood loss. My arm's a mess, the wound blackening like it's infected with something unnatural. We reach a dirt road, and I flag down a trucker, begging for a ride. He looks spooked, but lets us in. As we drive, Maud whispers, "They let us go, Elias." That's worse. I don't understand, but her words chill me. The hum's faint now, but it's still there, like a promise. I clutch Rusty, trying to believe we've escaped. We hit Elkins, the trucker dropping us at a gas station. I'm dizzy, vision blurring, but I call for help. Maud's shaking, staring at the woods like they're following us. I want to believe we're safe, that we outran those things. But the stone in my pocket feels heavier, warmer, like it's alive. I don't tell Maud. I can't. The paramedics are coming, their sirens cutting through the night. But something tells me this isn't over. Not by a long shot. The gas station's fluorescent lights buzz, making my head throb. I'm slumped on the curb, Rusty pressed against me, while Maud paces, muttering about the hollow ones. My arm's burning, the wound oozing something black that smells like decay. The paramedics are taking forever, and I'm fighting to stay awake. I pull the stone from my pocket. its symbol glowing faintly, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. I should have left it in the mine. That was my mistake, thinking I could carry it out, like it was just a rock. Now it's tied to me, and I can feel it. Something's inside me, spreading. Maud grabs my hand, her eyes wild. "You took it, didn't you?" "Their mark." I nod, throat dry, and she curses, saying the stones acclaim, "Away they follow you." I laugh, weak and bitter, thinking she's lost it, but the hum's back, faint but growing, like it's coming from inside my skull. I try to drop the stone, but my fingers won't let go, like it's fused to my skin. Panic claws at me. This is worse than the mine, worse than running. They didn't chase us because they didn't need to. The paramedics finally pull up, and I'm loaded onto a stretcher, Rusty whining as they separate us. Maud refuses to come, saying she has to make things right. I beg her to stay, but she slips into the dark, heading back toward the woods. That's the last I see of her. In the ambulance, my fever spikes, and the hum turns to voices, whispering things I can't understand but feel. Hate, hunger, vengeance. The medic's face blurs, and I swear his eyes glint like theirs for a second. I'm losing it, or maybe I'm already gone. At the hospital, they cut away my shirt, and the doctors gasp. The wounds spread, black veins snaking across my chest, forming symbols like the one on the stone. They don't know what it is, but I do. It's the hollow ones, claiming me like they claimed Caleb. I try to explain, but my voice is weak, and they sedate me. As I fade, I see them in my mind. Those gaunt figures, standing in the mine, waiting. They wanted me to run, to carry their mark out, to spread it. I was their way into the world. I wake up restrained, tubes in my arms, monitors beeping. The stone's gone. They took it during surgery, but I feel it, like it's still inside me. The voices are louder, telling me to come back, to join them. I fight it, but my body's not mine anymore. The nurses look scared, whispering about my vitals crashing. One of them, a young guy, leans close, and I swear his breath smells like the mine, damp, rotten. He smiles, and it's not human. They're here, in the hospital, in me. Days pass, or maybe hours, I can't tell. I'm slipping, my thoughts fracturing. I see Rusty in my dreams, running through the woods, free. It's the only thing keeping me sane. But the voices are winning, pulling me towards something dark, something final. I realize now why Maud went back. She knew there was no escaping, not with their mark on you. She chose to face them, to end it her way. I should have done the same, but I ran, and now I'm their vessel. The last thing I remember is the hospital room, lights flickering, the hum so loud it drowns out everything. My chest burns, and I feel the black veins moving, reshaping me. The nurse, the one with the wrong smile, stands by my bed, holding the stone. He places it on my chest, and I scream, but no sound comes out. The room fades, and I'm back in the mine, surrounded by them. Their faces clear now, miners, but twisted, hollow, eternal. They welcome me, and I know I'm not Elias anymore. The tragedy isn't just my death, it's what I've become. The hospital reports a patient missing, no trace, just a bed full of black ash. But I'm not gone. I'm in the woods, with them, part of the hollow ones. I feel the land's anger, its hunger, and I'm hunting now, drawn to those who take too much, who don't leave offerings. Maud's dead, I know it, and Caleb's one of us. The forest is ours, and we're waiting for the next fool to build a cabin, to think they can escape. We always find them. Elkins buzzes with rumors, disappearances, strange symbols carved in trees. The locals avoid the woods, but someone always comes, chasing freedom, like I did. I'm out there, not human anymore, my rifle rusted, my cabin empty. Rusty's gone, maybe safe, maybe not. The hollow ones don't care. We're the land's vengeance, and I'm their newest soldier, bound forever to the dark I tried to flee. The stone was my mistake, and now it's my chain. I'm Nora Callahan, 29 years old, and I'm standing on the porch of my new home, a rickety farmhouse outside Point Pleasant, West Virginia. The Ohio River's just visible through the trees, its water sluggish and gray. I moved here 3 months ago, trading city noise for solitude after my brother's death hit me hard. He was all I had, and the grief was suffocating. Out here, off-grid with solar panels and a generator, I thought I could rebuild, maybe find peace. The house is old, creaking like it's got secrets, but it's mine. Just me, my sketchbook, and a shotgun I'm still learning to shoot. The nearest folks are the Tanners, a family a mile down the dirt road. Amos Tanner, mid-50s, is a gruff farmer who helped me fix my fence when I arrived. His wife, Lila, bakes bread that smells like heaven, but her smiles don't reach her eyes. Their daughter, Ivy, 17, is sharp, always sketching birds in a notebook like mine. She's the only one who seems curious about me, though Amos warned her to leave the new girl be. They're kind enough, but there's a wariness, like they're waiting for me to screw up. Point Pleasant's got a weird vibe. The town's small, obsessed with its Mothman statue, a red-eyed creature from the 60s that locals swear haunted the skies. I heard about it at the diner. Old-timers talking about crashes, disappearances, and warnings from the Mothman. I'm not into myths, but the stories linger, especially at night when the woods hum with cicadas. My farmhouse sits on land once owned by a recluse who vanished in the 80s. The realtor said he moved on, but the locals hint at something darker. I've been settling in, planting a small garden, hauling water from a well. It's hard work, but it keeps my mind off things. I sketch the river, the trees, trying to capture the quiet. But lately, the quiet feels wrong, like it's hiding something. My generator's been acting up, flickering at odd hours, and I keep finding dead birds on my porch. Crows, sparrows, wings bent like they fell mid-flight. I tell myself it's just nature, but it's starting to feel personal. I met Ivy at the market last week, and she mentioned the land's rules. She said to hang iron nails above my door to keep things out. I laughed, thinking she was joking, but her face was dead serious. Amos overheard, pulled her away, muttering about foolish talk. I bought the nails anyway, hammered them up, feeling silly. Now I'm glad I did. The birds keep coming, and last night, I swore I saw red lights flickering in the sky, brief but bright. The farmhouse feels less like a refuge now. I lock the doors at dusk, keep the shotgun by my bed. I'm not paranoid, but I'm not stupid either. The woods are too dense, the river too still. I keep thinking about the Mothman, wondering if it's just a story or something real. The locals say it's a harbinger, showing up before disaster. I don't believe in omens, but every creak in the house makes me jump, like something's testing the walls. I've been avoiding the barn out back. It's ancient, boards warped, and it smells like mildew. Amos warned me to steer clear, said it's unlucky. I plan to use it for storage, but every time I get close, my skin prickles, like I'm being watched. Yesterday, I found scratches on the barn door, deep and uneven, like claw marks. I told myself it was an animal, but my gut says otherwise. I'm starting to think this land doesn't want me here. Ivy stopped by this morning, dropping off eggs from Lila. She lingered, glancing at the barn, then whispered, "You hear the wings at night?" I froze, not sure what she meant, but before I could ask, Amos called her back. Her words stuck with me, though, especially now, as the sun sets and the air feels heavy, like a storm's brewing. I'm not sure what's out there, but it's getting harder to ignore. The river's reflecting the last of the light, and I'm gripping my coffee mug, staring at the trees. Something's off, something scary, and I can't shake the feeling I'm not alone. The nails above the door glint, but they don't feel like enough. I tell myself I'm overreacting, that grief's messing with my head. But deep down, I know this place is hiding something, and it's only a matter of time before it shows itself. I'm up before dawn, sweeping dead birds off the porch. 5 crows this time, their eyes glassy, wings twisted like they slammed into something midair. The air's thick with that river smell, damp and sour, and my hands shake as I toss them into the brush. My generator's been coughing, barely holding a charge, so I'm stuck with candles tonight. I mutter, "Come on, Nora, get it together," but the farmhouse feels like it's watching me. I decide to check the barn today, claw marks or not. If something's out there, I need to know what I'm dealing with. I head to the Tanner's place, hoping Amos can help with the generator. The mile-long walk feels endless, the woods too quiet, like the cicadas took a vow of silence. Amos is in his field, sharpening a scythe, and he barely looks up when I explain the problem. "Old wiring," he grunts, but his eyes flick to my farmhouse, like he knows something. Lila offers me tea, her hands nervous, and whispers, "You been keeping the nails up?" I nod, uneasy. Their house feels safe, but heavy, like it's holding secrets. Ivy's in the yard, sketching, and I ask her about the wings she mentioned. She hesitates, then says, "They come at night, big ones, from the barn." Her voice is low, scared, and she glances at Amos, who's watching us. I press her, but she clams up, saying, "Just don't go in there, Nora." I leave with a promise from Amos to check my generator tomorrow, but Ivy's words stick. Wings? Like the Mothman? I laugh it off, but my stomach's in knots. This place is starting to feel more disturbing than I can handle. Back home, the generator's dead, so I light candles, their flicker making shadows dance on the walls. I grab my shotgun and head to the barn, heart pounding. The claw marks are deeper now, fresh splinters curling outward. I touch them, and they're warm, like something alive made them. I push the door open, the hinges screaming, and step inside. The air's thick, smelling like rot, and something sharp, like ozone. My flashlight catches old farm tools, cobwebs, and something else. A pile of feathers, black and oily, in the corner. I'm frozen, staring at the feathers, when I hear it. A low buzz, like static, coming from above. I swing the flashlight up, and the beam catches movement in the rafters, fast and jerky. I stumble back, tripping over a rake, and the buzz stops. Nothing's there, just dust drifting down. My breath's ragged, and I'm out the door before I can think, slamming it shut. I tell myself it was a bat, but bats don't feel like they're staring through you. That was something scary, something wrong. I spend the afternoon reinforcing the farmhouse, nailing boards over the barn door. My hands are raw, and I'm jumping at every sound. I decide to call the sheriff tomorrow, see if anyone's been trespassing. But deep down, I know this isn't kids or vandals. The feathers, the buzz, Ivy's warning, it's all connected. I think about the Mothman, the stories of it showing up before tragedy. Is it real? Or is my mind cracking under the isolation? I don't know, but I'm not sleeping tonight. Dusk hits, and I'm on the porch, shotgun across my lap, watching the sky. The river's still, reflecting a red glow that shouldn't be there. I blink, and it's gone, but my skin's crawling. I hear a flap, heavy and slow, from the barn's direction. My heart skips, and I grip the gun tighter. I'm about to check it out when I see Ivy running up the path, out of breath, her face pale. "Nora, don't go near it," she gasps. They're awake. Before I can ask who, headlights flash. Amos, pulling up in his truck, yelling for her to get in. Ivy's dragged away, but not before she slips me a crumpled drawing. I unfold it later, by candlelight, and my blood runs cold. It's the barn, with red eyes glowing in the rafters, wings spread wide. The buzz starts again, faint but growing, like it's calling me. I lock the doors, check the nails, but the house feels flimsy, like it's no match for what's out there. I'm starting to think I made a mistake coming here, that this land's got plans for me. I'm up all night, the buzz weaving into my dreams, turning them into nightmares of wings and eyes. The drawing's on my table, and I can't stop looking at it. Ivy knows something, and Amos is hiding it. I need answers, but I'm scared to leave the house. The river's too quiet, the sky too dark. Whatever's in that barn, it's not just a myth. It's here, and it's getting closer. I just hope I can figure out what it wants before it's too late. I'm crouched in the farmhouse, shotgun in my hands, staring at the door as the buzz grows louder, like a swarm of wasps in my skull. It's past midnight, and Ivy's drawing is burned into my mind. Those red eyes, those wings. The nails above the door glint in the candlelight, but they feel useless now. I hear it again, that heavy flap from the barn, closer this time, like something circling the house. Rusty's not here to warn me, and I'm alone, muttering, "Nora, don't lose it." But my heart's racing, and I know whatever's out there isn't just a story. It's real, and it's scary as hell. I peek through the window, and my breath catches. The barn door's open, boards I nailed up splintered like matchsticks. In the moonlight, I see shapes, tall, angular, with wings that shimmer like oil. Not one, but three, moving jerkily, like puppets on strings. Their eyes glow red, pinning me through the glass. I duck, heart slamming, and crawl to the kitchen. This isn't the Mothman from tourist brochures. This is something worse, something that wants in. I'm shaking, realizing I've stumbled into their territory. The buzz spikes, and the windows rattle, like something's pressing against the house. I grab Ivy's drawing, stuff it in my pocket, and check the shotgun shells. My phone's dead, generator's still shot, so I can't call for help. I think about Amos and Lila, wondering if they know what's happening. Ivy's warning, they're awake, loops in my head. Who are they? Not just Mothman, but something older, hungrier. The local stories about disappearances, about the land taking people, feel too real now. I'm in deep, and it's disturbing. I hear a scrape at the door, slow and deliberate, like claws testing the wood. My stomach drops, and I aim the shotgun, whispering, "Stay back." The scrape stops, but the buzz turns to a voice, not words, but a feeling like dread poured into my veins. It's telling me to open the door, to come out. I clamp my hands over my ears, but it's inside me. I'm not crazy, but I'm close to breaking. The nails above the door are glowing faintly, red hot, and I swear they're bending. Whatever these things are, they're not stopping. I bolt to the bedroom, barricading the door with a dresser. My sketchbook's on the bed, open to a drawing of the river I did last week. But it's wrong. Red eyes are scribbled over the trees in my handwriting. I don't remember doing that. My hands shake as I tear the page out, and the buzz laughs, low and cruel. I'm losing it, or the house is. I grab a knife from my nightstand, tucking it in my belt. If those things get in, I'm not going down without a fight. A crash comes from the kitchen, glass shattering. I freeze, listening. Footsteps, not human, click across the floor, too light for their size. I peek through a crack in the barricade and see one of them inside. Wings folded, head twitching like it's scanning. Its eyes lock on the bedroom door, and I bite my lip to keep from screaming. It's not just here, it's hunting me. I think of Ivy, her fear, and Amos's warnings. Did they know this was coming? Why didn't they tell me? I'm trapped, but I spot the attic hatch above. It's a risk, but staying here's worse. I climb onto the bed, pull the hatch down, and scramble up, dragging the shotgun. The attic's dusty, smelling like mold, and I crawl to a vent, peering out. The other two creatures are outside, circling the house, their wings kicking up dirt. They're coordinated, like they're planning. I realize now, they're not just invading my home. They're claiming it, like they claimed the barn, the land, maybe the whole damn town. I find a loose board in the attic floor, prying it up. Below, the creature's in my bedroom, tearing through the dresser like it's paper. Its wings brush the ceiling, leaving black streaks that pulse like veins. I cover my mouth, stifling a sob. This is beyond scary. It's a nightmare I can't wake from. I need to get out, find the Tanners, or get to town. But the vent's too small to climb through, and the attic's a dead end. I'm stuck, and they know it. The buzz shifts, and I hear Ivy's voice outside, calling my name. My heart leaps. She's here. But something's off. Her voice is too flat, like she's reading a script. I peer through the vent, and there she is, standing by the barn, eyes glowing red, just like theirs. My blood runs cold. Ivy's not Ivy anymore. She's theirs. The creatures pause, like they're waiting for me to answer her. It's a trap, and I'm running out of time. I grip the shotgun, knowing I can't stay here, but leaving means facing them. I'm huddled in the attic, shotgun slick with sweat, the buzz drilling into my skull like a dentist's tool. Ivy's voice, fake, hollow, calls my name again from outside, but I know it's not her. Those red-eyed things are using her, luring me out. The creature in my bedroom's tearing through the barricade, its claws like knives on wood. I'm trapped, heart hammering, muttering, "Nora, think, think." The attic vent's too small, but I spot a loose panel in the roof. It's my only shot. I pry it open with my knife, splinters biting my hands, and crawl onto the slanted roof, the night air cold and sharp. The farmhouse is surrounded. Two of those winged things circle below, their eyes glowing like brake lights, wings kicking up dust. I see Ivy by the barn, standing too still, her head tilted wrong. My stomach twists. She's gone, taken by whatever these creatures are. The buzz spikes, urging me to jump, to give in. I grip the shotgun, inching toward the edge, aiming for the shed's roof to break my fall. One wrong move, and I'm dead. I whisper, "You've got this," but it's a lie. This is life or death, and I'm barely holding on. I leap, hitting the shed hard, pain shooting through my ankle. I roll off, limping toward the woods, shotgun ready. The creatures screech, a sound like metal on glass, and take flight, their wings blotting out the stars. I sprint, branches tearing at my face, the river's glint guiding me. I'm aiming for the Tanner's place, praying Amos and Lila are still human. The buzz is relentless, and I feel those things above, tracking me. My ankle's screaming, but stopping means dying. This isn't just scary, it's a hunt, and I'm the prey. I stumble into a clearing, and there's Amos, rifle in hand, face pale. "Nora, what did you do?" he shouts, eyes on the sky. I gasp about the creatures. Ivy, the barn. He curses, says the land's cursed, tied to something older than the Mothman, beings that claim what's theirs. He drags me toward his truck, parked nearby, but the creatures dive, claws grazing my shoulder. I scream, firing the shotgun. One staggers, black ichor spraying, but it doesn't stop. Amos shoots, yelling, "Run, girl." We're in deep, and it's getting worse. We reach the truck, piling in, but the creatures slam the roof, denting it like tin foil. Amos floors it, tires spinning on gravel, and we tear toward town. My shoulder's bleeding, the pain white hot, and the buzz is louder, like it's inside me. I glance back. Ivy's running after us, impossibly fast, her eyes blazing red. Amos swears, she's theirs now. I'm sobbing, realizing Ivy's lost, maybe Lila too. The creatures follow, wings thudding, their screeches shaking my bones. We're escaping, but it feels like a trap. The truck hits the bridge into Point Pleasant, and the creatures peel off, vanishing into the dark. I'm shaking, blood soaking my shirt, but we're alive. Amos grips the wheel, muttering about breaking the rules. He says the barn was their nest, and I woke them by living here, by not paying respect. I'm furious, yelling, "Why didn't you warn me?" He just shakes his head, eyes haunted. We pull into town, streetlights harsh after the dark, and I think we're safe. But the buzz lingers, faint, like it's waiting. At the sheriff's station, I'm patched up, my shoulder stitched, ankle braced. Amos tells the deputy a half-truth. Wild animals, maybe a cult. I don't argue. Who'd believe me? The buzz is quiet now, but my skin's crawling, like something's watching. I keep seeing Ivy's face, those red eyes. Amos says Lila's missing, gone when he checked the house. My heart sinks, they got her too. I'm given a motel room for the night, the shotgun confiscated. I lock the door, but sleep's impossible. The buzz is back, soft, promising trouble. I find Ivy's drawing in my pocket, crumpled but intact. The red eyes seem to glow, and I swear the paper's warm. I shove it under the pillow, trying to forget, but the motel feels flimsy, like the creatures could rip through the walls. Amos said he'd check the farmhouse tomorrow, burn the barn if he has to. I don't trust him. He knew too much, said too little. The buzz hums, and I feel marked, like I carried something out of those woods. I'm not sure I escaped at all. Morning breaks, and I'm exhausted, staring at the motel ceiling. The sheriff calls, says they found Lila's truck by the river, empty. My chest tightens, she's gone, like Ivy. I want to leave Point Pleasant, but the buzz is stronger now, like a tether pulling me back to the farmhouse. I'm terrified, realizing the creatures let me go for a reason. They're not done with me, and I don't know how to fight what's coming. The motel phone rings, and I freeze, scared to answer, knowing it's not human on the other end. I'm staring at the motel phone, its ring cutting through the buzz in my head. My hand hovers, trembling, but I don't pick up. The ringing stops, and the silence is worse, like the air's holding its breath. My shoulders throbbing, the stitches itching like something's moving under my skin. I pull back the bandage, and my breath catches. Black veins spread from the wound, curling like wings. This is my mistake, thinking I could run from those things. They marked me, and now they're inside me, turning me into something disturbing, something like Ivy. I grab Ivy's drawing, and it's changed. The red eyes are bleeding ink, pooling on the paper. I drop it, backing away, but the buzz laughs, low and cruel, saying I belong to them. I think of Amos, his warnings, and realize he knew this would happen. He didn't burn the barn. He led me to it, like a sacrifice to keep them quiet. I'm furious, but it's too late. The motel mirror shows my eyes flickering red, just for a second. I scream, smashing the glass, but the truth's clear. I'm not Nora anymore. I sneak out, stealing a bike from the motel lot, pedaling toward the farmhouse. I need to end this, burn the barn, break their hold. The river's fog clings to me, the buzz guiding me like a leash. My ankle's shot, but adrenaline keeps me moving. I reach the farmhouse at dawn, the barn looming, its door wide open. Inside, it's worse. Feathers everywhere, walls pulsing with black veins like a heartbeat. I douse the place with kerosene from the shed, hands shaking, whispering, "This ends now." But the buzz knows I'm here, and it's pleased. I light a match, and the barn goes up fast, flames roaring like a beast. I stumble back, coughing, but the buzz doesn't stop. It's louder, angrier. Shapes move in the fire, wings unfolding, eyes glowing through the smoke. They're not dying, they're free. My mistake wasn't running. It was thinking I could fight them. The creatures step out, unharmed, and I see Ivy among them. Her face blank, wings sprouting from her back. Lila's there too, transformed, red eyes locked on me. They're a family now, and they want me to join. I run for the river, the creatures gliding behind, their screeches splitting my skull. The buzz is me now, my thoughts drowning in their hunger. I trip, falling into the shallows, the cold water shocking but useless. My reflection shows wings budding from my shoulders, black and oily. I sob, clawing at them, but they're part of me. The creatures surround me, not attacking, just waiting. They don't need to chase. I'm theirs. The tragedy isn't my death. It's my surrender, becoming what I feared. Point Pleasant wakes to a burned barn, no trace of me. The sheriff calls it arson, blames a drifter. But the locals know, whispers of red eyes, of wings in the fog. The river carries my sketchbook downstream, pages filled with eyes I didn't draw. Amos disappears, maybe running, maybe taken. The creatures don't need the barn anymore. They're in the town, the woods, the sky. I'm with them, no longer Nora, my humanity gone. I glide over the river, eyes glowing, watching for the next soul to claim. The motel's empty, my room untouched, but the phone rings at night, no one on the line. Kids dare each other to visit the farmhouse, not knowing we're waiting. The Mothman was a warning, but these things are worse. Invaders from somewhere beyond, using the land as their stage. I feel their joy, their hunger, and I can't stop it. I'm their herald now, my wings spreading wide, my voice the buzz that calls others. The town's next, and I'm leading the way. I think of my brother, his face fading as I forget who I was. The river flows, carrying our shadows, and Point Pleasant shrinks under our gaze. We're not just here, we're growing, spreading, claiming. My mistake was coming here, thinking I could escape grief and solitude. Now I'm eternal, a piece of their cruel design, and the tragedy is mine forever. The buzz is my heartbeat, the wings my truth. I'm home, and I'm never leaving. The story ends with a new myth, people vanishing, red eyes in the fog, a town too scared to sleep. The Mothman statue stands, but it's not him they fear now. It's us, the ones who took me, who take everyone. Point Pleasant is ours, and I'm its first casualty, its newest monster. The river knows, but it won't tell. I'm Gideon Marsh, 42 years old, and I'm hauling firewood to my cabin in Cass, West Virginia. The mountain air sharpened my lungs. I moved here 4 months ago, ditching a dead-end job in Pittsburgh for the quiet of off-grid life. After my dad passed, I needed a reset, somewhere to breathe, to think. This old logging cabin, tucked in the woods near the Greenbrier River, seemed perfect. It's got a wood stove, a hand-pumped well, and a view that makes you forget the world. I'm alone, just me and my axe, but lately, that solitude's feeling more like a cage. The closest folks are the Dawsons, a couple in their 60s who run a small supply store a mile down the valley. Emmett Dawson's a quiet guy, always tinkering with engine parts, but he's been good to me, lending tools when my roof leaked. His wife, Ruth, is warmer, always slipping me extra jerky with my groceries. Their nephew, Tate, 25, helps out at the store, but he's cagey, always watching the woods like they owe him money. They're my only contact out here, and I'm grateful, even if they're a bit odd. Cass is a ghost town half the year, its old railroad depot drawing tourists in summer, but empty now. The locals talk about the tracks like they're cursed, tied to a 1901 train wreck that killed dozens of workers. They call the dead iron wraiths, saying they haunt the rails, angry at being forgotten. I heard it at the store, Ruth whispering to a customer about lights on the tracks at night. I'm not one for ghost stories, but out here, the dark makes you wonder. I've been settling in, chopping wood, fishing the river, teaching myself to live simply. The cabin's sturdy, but it creaks like it's complaining. I keep a hunting rifle by the door, more for bears than anything else. But the last few weeks, things have felt off. My well water tastes metallic, like rust, and I keep finding ash piles near the cabin, small and neat, like someone burned paper. I tell myself it's nothing, but it's starting to get under my skin. Ruth gave me a weird tip when I moved in. Hang a horseshoe over the door to keep the wraiths out. I thought she was joking, but her eyes were serious, like she'd seen something. I hung the horseshoe, mostly to be polite, but now I check it every night, making sure it's still there. Tate's been weirder, too, warning me not to walk the tracks after dark. They don't like trespassers, he said, then clammed up. I brushed it off, but it's hard to ignore. The woods are too quiet lately, the river too still. I'm not sleeping well, waking up to faint whistles, like a train in the distance. But Cass hasn't had trains in years. Last night, I found a rusted railroad spike on my porch, heavy and cold. No explanation. I locked it in a drawer, heart pounding, telling myself it's a prank. But deep down, I know this place is hiding something, and it's not friendly. I've been avoiding the old rail line that cuts through the woods. It's overgrown, ties rotting, but it feels wrong, like it's watching me. Emmett mentioned it was bad luck to cross it at night, and I laughed, but now I'm not so sure. The ash piles are getting bigger, and last week, I swore I saw a light flicker on the tracks, brief but bright, like a lantern. I'm starting to think I made a mistake coming here. The cabin's supposed to be my refuge, but it's feeling flimsy, like it can't keep out what's lurking. I check the locks, keep the rifle loaded, and try to focus on chores. But every night, the woods seem to creep closer, the air heavier. I'm not superstitious, but the stories about the iron wraiths are sticking, especially when I'm alone, staring at the dark. Something's out there, and it's not just my imagination. I'm chopping wood now, the axe steady in my hands, but my eyes keep drifting to the tracks. The horseshoe's still up, but it doesn't feel like enough. I tell myself I'm overreacting, that it's just the isolation messing with me. But the ash, the spike, the whistles, they're adding up to something scary, something I can't ignore. I just hope I'm wrong about what's coming. I'm knee-deep in the well's pump system, cursing as the water stays murky, tasting like I'm licking a penny. The sun's barely up, and my hands are numb from the cold, but I can't ignore this anymore. The cabin's running low on clean water, and hauling it from the river's a pain. I mutter, "Come on, Gideon, figure it out." But the pump's shot, and I'm no mechanic. I decide to ask Emmett for help, even if it means hiking to the Dawson store. Something about that metallic taste feels wrong, like the land's spitting poison. The trek to the store is quiet, too quiet. No birds, just the crunch of leaves under my boots. The railroad tracks run parallel, and I avoid looking at them, but the rusted spike from my porch is heavy in my pocket. I don't know why I brought it, but tossing it felt riskier. Emmett's at the store, tinkering with a carburetor, and he frowns when I mention the well. Could be iron deposits, he says, but his eyes dart to the tracks, like they're listening. Ruth hands me coffee, whispering, "You been leaving salt by the door?" I blink, confused, and she sighs, like I've already messed up. I ask about the spike, pulling it out, and Tate, stacking cans nearby, freezes. "Where'd you get that?" he snaps, voice sharp. I say it was on my porch, and he grabs it, turning it over like it's cursed. "Don't keep their things," he says, tossing it in a drawer. I press him, but Emmett cuts in, saying it's just old junk. Their secrecy's pissing me off, but I need their help, so I let it slide. Ruth slips me a bag of rock salt, says to sprinkle it around the cabin. I take it, feeling stupid, but her fear's contagious. Back home, the well's still bad, so I rig a filter with charcoal, hoping it works. My rifle's by the door, and I'm jumpy, checking the horseshoe every hour. I decide to set up a motion light by the porch. Maybe it'll catch whoever's leaving ash piles. The latest one was this morning, bigger, with a faint handprint burned into it. My gut twists. This isn't kids or wind. I think about the iron wraiths, the workers who died on the tracks, their bodies never found. Locals say they guard the rails, punishing anyone who takes from the land. I'm not buying it, but it's hard to shake. Dusk falls, and I'm wiring the motion light when I hear a whistle, sharp, like a train, but too close. I freeze, heart pounding, scanning the tracks. Nothing, just shadows, but the air's heavy, like a storm's brewing. I sprinkle Ruth's salt around the porch, feeling like an idiot, but I'm spooked. The whistle fades, but my skin's crawling, like eyes are on me. I tell myself it's just the woods, but deep down, I know it's something scarier something tied to those tracks. Inside, I check the drawer where I stashed another spike I found yesterday. Same as the first, rusted but warm to the touch. I should have thrown it out, but I kept it, thinking I'd show Emmett. Stupid move. Now it feels like a beacon, drawing trouble. The motion light flicks on, and I grab the rifle, peering out. Nothing's there, but the ash pile's gone, replaced by a line of spikes, pointing toward the tracks. My mouth goes dry. This is beyond disturbing. It's a message. I'm up half the night, rifle across my lap, listening for that whistle. Around 2 a.m., the motion light flashes again, and I see it, a figure, tall and thin, standing by the tracks. It's not human, more like smoke shaped into a man, with eyes like burning coals. I blink, and it's gone, but my heart's racing. I think of Tate's warning, Ruth's salt, Emmett's silence. They know something, and I'm done playing nice. I decide to confront them tomorrow, demand answers. Morning comes, and I'm wired, barely slept. The spikes are still there, glinting in the sun, and the well water's worse, almost red now. I'm starting to feel trapped, like the cabin's no longer mine. The woods are too still, the tracks too close. I grab the rifle, the salt, and head for the Dawsons, determined to get the truth. But as I step outside, I hear that whistle again, closer, like it's calling my name. Something's coming, and I'm not ready. I'm halfway to the store when I notice the trees, scratched with symbols, like twisted letters, fresh and deep. They weren't there yesterday. My blood runs cold, and I grip the rifle tighter. The iron wraiths, or whatever's out here, they're not just watching anymore. They're moving in, and I'm in their way. I just hope I can get to the Dawsons before it's too late. I'm halfway to the Dawsons store, rifle slung over my shoulder, when the whistle cuts through the air again, sharp, like a blade in my ears. The trees loom closer, their scratched symbols glinting like they're wet. I stop, heart pounding, scanning the tracks running parallel to the path. Nothing moves, but the air's thick, like it's pushing me back. Gideon, keep it together. I mutter, but my hands are shaking. The salt Ruth gave me is in my pack, and I'm gripping the rifle like it's my lifeline. Something's out here, and it's not just a prank anymore. It's scary as hell. The store's in sight, but it's wrong. No smoke from the chimney, no hum of Emmett's generator. I call out, "Emmett? Ruth?" But the wind swallows my voice. The door's ajar, swinging slightly, and my gut twists. I step inside, rifle ready, and the place is a mess. Shelves tipped, cans scattered, a chair smashed. The air smells like ash and something sharp, like hot metal. Tate. I try, but it's dead quiet. On the counter, there's a pile of railroad spikes, arranged in a circle, and my blood runs cold. This is beyond disturbing. I search the back, finding Ruth's knitting bag torn apart, needles bent. There's a smear of something dark on the floor, not blood, but oily, like tar. My boots stick to it, and I gag, backing away. Through the window, I see the tracks, and there's a figure, tall, smoky, with coal-red eyes, just like last night. It's standing on the rails, head tilted, like it's waiting. I freeze, breath caught, and it raises a hand, pointing at me. The whistle screams, and I stumble out the door, heart slamming. This is no ghost. It's real, and it's coming for me. I'm running now, back toward my cabin, the woods blurring past. The whistle's everywhere, joined by a low hum, like machinery under the earth. I glance back, and the figure's gone, but I feel it, like a shadow on my back. The symbols on the trees are glowing faintly, pulsing in time with the hum. I think of the iron wraiths, the workers who died in the wreck, their bodies fused to the rails, or so the stories go. Ruth said they guard what's theirs. I didn't take anything, but maybe living here's enough to piss them off. My cabin's in view, but the door's open. I locked it, I know I did. Inside, it's chaos. Table flipped, my books shredded, the horseshoe torn from the wall and melted into a lump. The spikes I hid in the drawer are on the floor, arranged like an arrow pointing to the tracks. My chest tightens. This isn't just a warning, it's an invasion. Something wants me out, or worse, wants me to join it. I grab my pack, stuffing and ammo, a flashlight, and the salt, hands shaking. I need to get to town, find help. I'm about to bolt when I hear Tate's voice, weak, from the woods. Gideon, help. I freeze, torn. He's out there, maybe hurt, but the whistle's louder, and I don't trust it. I step outside, rifle up, and see him by the tracks, leaning against a tree, clutching his side. His eyes are wild, but they flicker red for a second, like the figures. My stomach drops. Is he still Tate? I shout, "Stay there," but he stumbles toward me, begging. Against my better judgment, I run to him, the hum pressing on my skull. Tate's shirt is torn, his hands smeared with that tar-like stuff. "They got Ruth," he gasps. "Emmett too." I ask what they are, but he just points to the tracks, eyes wide. The wraiths, they're awake. Before I can process, the ground shakes, like a train's coming, but there's no train. The air burns, smelling like molten iron, and I see them. 3 figures, smoky and jagged, rising from the rails. Their eyes lock on me, and the hum turns to a voice, cold and final. "You're ours." I grab Tate, dragging him toward the cabin, but he's heavy, slowing me down. We make it inside, barricading the door, but the windows rattle, like something's clawing to get in. Tate's slumped on the floor, muttering about paying the price. I shake him, demanding answers, but he's half gone, eyes flickering again. The spikes on the floor are moving, sliding into a new shape, a symbol like the ones on the trees. I scatter Ruth's salt over it, and the hum screeches like I hurt them. But the figures are outside now, circling, their forms flickering like bad TV static. They're not just here, they're everywhere. I'm trapped with Tate, who's not Tate anymore, and the cabin's no sanctuary. The whistles a roar, shaking the walls, and the figures are closer, their hands scraping the wood. I think of Ruth's salt, Emmett's silence, the spikes I kept. Was that my mistake, holding onto their things? The Iron Wraiths aren't just ghosts. There's something worse, something that owns this land. I need to run, but Tate's a dead weight, and the tracks are calling. I'm not sure I can escape what's coming. I'm barricaded in the cabin, Tate slumped against the wall, his eyes flickering red like dying embers. The Iron Wraiths are outside, their smoky forms clawing at the windows, the whistle so loud it's rattling my teeth. The air burns with that molten iron smell, and the symbols on the floor pulse, even under Ruth's salt. "Gideon, we gotta move," I mutter, but Tate's barely conscious, muttering about joining them. I grab my rifle, pack, and a crowbar, knowing the cabin's done for. Those things aren't just invading, they're claiming me, and I'm in a life-or-death sprint to get out. I drag Tate to his feet, his weight slowing me, and kick the back door open. The wraiths screech, a sound like tearing metal, and I fire the rifle blindly, the shot swallowed by their hum. We stumble into the woods, the tracks glowing faintly behind us, like they're alive. I'm aiming for the river, hoping to follow it to Cass's old depot, maybe find help. Tate's dragging, his hands cold and slick with that tar-like ooze. "There in me," he whispers, and I shiver, wondering if I'm saving him or dooming us both. The wraiths are close, their eyes burning through the trees. We hit a ravine, sliding down muddy slopes, my crowbar catching on roots. The whistles everywhere, and I see them. 3 wraiths, gliding above, their forms sharpening into men, but wrong, with jagged limbs and faces like melted iron. I scream, "Keep moving," but Tate collapses, clawing at his chest. His skin splitting, black veins crawling out, like he's turning into one of them. I hesitate, heart pounding. This is scary as hell, but I can't leave him. I sling his arm over my shoulder, staggering toward the river, the hum pressing like a vice. The river's in sight, its water dark and churning. When the wraiths dive, claws grazing my back. Pain explodes, and I swing the crowbar, hitting something solid that doesn't bleed, just hisses. Tate's screaming now, not human, and I see spikes erupting from his skin, like the ones on my porch. "Gideon, run," he chokes, but I'm frozen, watching him change. The wraiths pause, like they're waiting, and I realize they want him to finish it. I bolt, guilt clawing me, leaving Tate to their mercy. This isn't just survival, it's betrayal. I'm sprinting along the river, the depot's silhouette faint in the fog. The wraiths follow, but slower, like they're toying with me. My back's bleeding, the pain white hot, and the hums in my head, whispering, "You can't leave." I think of Ruth and Emmett, probably gone, their store a trap I walked into. My mistake was keeping those spikes, thinking they were just junk. Now they're a chain, tying me to the tracks. I reach the depot, its windows shattered, and duck inside, gasping, hoping it's sanctuary. It's not. The depot's a ruin, smelling like ash and rust. I barricade the door with crates, my flashlight catching symbols carved into the walls, same as the trees. The hum spikes, and I hear Tate's voice outside, but it's wrong, metallic. Gideon, come out. My blood runs cold, he's one of them now. I scatter salt, but it's useless. The symbols glow, and the crates shake, like the wraiths are tearing through. I find a trapdoor to a basement, crawling down, the air thick with that tar smell. It's a dead end, but I'm out of options. In the basement, I find old rail records, papers mentioning the 1901 wreck. Workers buried alive when a tunnel collapsed, their bodies lost to the iron. There's a photo, men with hollow eyes, and I swear one's the wraith I saw, its face unchanged. The hum laughs, and the trapdoor rattles. They're coming, and I'm trapped. I grip the crowbar, ready to fight, but my back's burning, and I feel something moving under my skin, like veins shifting. They're not just chasing me, they're changing me. I hear a truck outside, headlights cutting through the fog. Someone's here, maybe a ranger, maybe a local. I scream for help, banging the trapdoor, but the hum drowns me out. The wraiths are above, their claws on wood, and Tate's voice calls again, closer, you're ours. The truck's engine revs, then fades, like they didn't hear me. My hope dies, and I'm alone, the basement closing in. I scatter the last of the salt, praying it holds them off, but the symbols are on my hands now, etched like tattoos. I'm not escaping this. The depot shakes, like the tracks are waking up, and I feel the wraith's presence, heavy, final. I think of Cass, its quiet beauty, how I thought I could start over. Now I'm fighting to stay human, but the hum's winning, pulling me toward the rails. The trapdoor splinters, and I swing the crowbar, screaming, but it's useless. They're here, and I'm running out of time. The river's my last hope, but it's so far, and I'm so tired. I just want this to end. I'm curled in the depot's basement, crowbar slick with sweat, the wraith's claws tearing through the trapdoor. The hum's a roar, and my hands are covered in those symbols, burning like brands. My back's worse, veins pulsing, like something's growing inside me. My mistake was keeping those spikes, thinking I could ignore the land's rules. Now the iron wraiths have me, and they're not letting go. I whisper, I'm sorry, Dad. Like he can't hear me, but the only answer is the whistle, sharp and cruel. This isn't just scary, it's the end. I swing the crowbar as the trapdoor shatters, hitting a wraith's arm, but it's like striking steel. Its eyes burn red, and I see Tate's face in it, twisted, his mouth a jagged grin. Join us, he says, and the others echo, their voices a chorus of rust and rage. I scatter the last salt, and they hiss, but it's weak, like blowing on a forest mulway. The symbols on my hands glow brighter, spreading up my arms. I'm changing, becoming like Tate, like the wraiths. My mistake was thinking I could fight them, that I could run. The land owns me now, and it's angry. I crawl to a corner, clutching the photo from the rail records, the workers' faces staring back, their eyes my eyes now. The hum's in my head, telling me to give in, to walk the tracks. I think of Ruth, Emmett, their silence. Maybe they tried to warn me, or maybe they offered me up to save themselves. The wraiths don't care. They're eternal, born from the wreck, fused to the iron, and I'm their newest piece. I sob, but my tears are black, like tar. The basement walls crack, symbols bleeding through, and I feel the tracks calling, a pull I can't fight. I drop the crowbar, too heavy, and stumble up, the wraiths parting like a curtain. They don't attack, they guide me, out of the depot, toward the rails. The river's close, but it's useless. I'm not human anymore. My skin splits, spikes sprouting, and I scream, but it's their voice, not mine. The tragedy isn't my death, it's my rebirth as one of them. Cass wakes to silence, the depot empty, my pack left behind, the photo burned to ash. The sheriff calls it a runaway, but the locals know, whispers of lights on the tracks, of whistles at night. The river carries no answers, only shadows. Tate's gone, Ruth and Emmett too, all part of the wraiths now. The symbols spread, carved into trees, into dreams. I'm out there, no longer Gideon, my rifle rusted, my cabin cold. I walk the tracks, eyes red, body iron and smoke, hunting those who trespass, who take. The wraith's anger is my anger, their hunger mine. I see new cabins, new fools, and I wait, my whistle calling them. The store's closed, the Dawsons' names forgotten, but the rails remember. I'm their vengeance, bound to the wreck, to the land I thought I could claim. My mistake was coming here, thinking I could escape. The town shrinks, tourists blind to the lights, the symbols. Kids dare each other to cross the tracks, not knowing I'm watching, my claws sharp. The wraiths are no myth. They're the land's truth, its keepers, and I'm their soldier. I feel the river, the mountains, but they're not home. Home is the rails, the hum, the hunt. I'm eternal, a piece of their cruel design, and Cass is mine forever. The tragedy spreads, hikers vanish, cabins burn, spikes appear on porches. The tracks glow, and I lead the way, my whistle a warning no one heeds. The Iron Wraiths don't forgive, and neither do I. I'm the first, but not the last. The land takes what's owed, and I'm its hand, its heart, its horror. The river flows, but it's theirs now, and so am I.